Chapter 332. 2 days later, the kindergarten started school. Xiao Guai was very excited because she could go back to school and play with her friends. Bailey Yun took Xiao Bao, while Xia Dong took Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to school. Bailey Yun dragged Xiao Bao into his car and tied him to the front passenger seat, forcing him to listen to his nagging. "Son, don't fight with your classmates in school. Of course, if someone beats you up, you can beat them back." Xiao Bao rolled his eyes. "Are you telling me not to fight with others, or am I allowed to fight with others?" Bailey Yun ruffled his hair. "Don't take the initiative to hit others. If they hit you, don't hesitate to hit them back. Do you understand?" "Oh," Xiao Bao said. He looked up and asked curiously, "What if I beat them to death?" Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. "Son, are you deliberately making things difficult for me?" Xiao Bao snorted. "It's good that you know. I'm not a 3-year-old kid who knows how to deal with conflicts between classmates. I don't need you to teach me." Okay, I know you're good." Bailey Yun's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, "One more thing. No puppy love." Xiao Bao looked at him with disdain. "Do you think I'm like you? Leave mercy everywhere." He enunciated the last 4 words with great emphasis. Bailey Yun coughed awkwardly. "So, I'm a bad example. Don't learn from me. In school, you have to protect your sister and don't let her get bullied. Do you understand?" Xiao Bao said impatiently, I know, naggy old man. "Hey, you're daddy, I'm still in my prime." "How am I old? You dare to complain that I'm naggy now? When I'm 70 or 80 years old and really become an old man, are you going to kick me out of the house?" Bailey Yun felt that it was necessary to teach him a lesson about respecting his elders. Xiao Bao glared at him with his big beautiful eyes and said fiercely, "Don't worry. Even if you're old and your teeth fall out, I'll take care of you. I'm your son after all." Although his attitude wasn't good, his words still made Bai Liyun feel good. Thus, he very shamelessly forgot his original purpose. He smiled and patted Xiao Bao's head, praising, "Son, you said it very well." After reporting their arrival, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Zhao's face. Xiao Bao couldn't stand it and frowned. He grabbed Xiao Guai's little hand and said, "The teacher has a meeting." "Meeting? We'll be going." With that, the 2 little guys ran away. Bailey Yun's head drooped and he looked like he had been dealt a blow. Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. "Ah Yun, you're starting to look like a father now." Bailey Yun was instantly revived. He raised his eyebrows and said, "I can now understand how difficult it is for you." Xia Dong laughed. "I'm serious. When it's cold, I want to remind him to put on more clothes. When he's hungry, I want to get him something to eat. When I don't see him for a while, I'm worried that something might have happened to him." He laughed at himself. "I only know now that it's not easy being a parent." Xia Dong stopped laughing and walked to his side. She said seriously, "Ah Yun, don't worry and go to America. Your brother and I will take good care of Xiao Bao." Bailey Yun's lips curved. Xia, thank you. Thank you for taking good care of Xiao Bao all these years." Xia Dong smiled. "You're treating me like an outsider. Xiao Bao is also my son." He looked at her in a daze. He didn't know when it started, but when he saw her being intimate with Bailey Han, he didn't feel any heartache. He smiled and chuckled. Xia, seeing that you're happy, I can finally let go." Xia Dong pursed her lips and smiled. "Fox, you'll find your happiness too." In the complicated emotional entanglements, the one who left didn't necessarily have to be alone for the rest of his life. There was still the most suitable person waiting for him. For example, Li Duobao. This woman that Bailey Yun missed so much was still unheard of. Before going abroad, he decided to go to her house again and have a good talk with her. Even if she rejected him, he would accept it. When he arrived at her door, he knocked for a long time, but no one answered. The neighbor opposite Li Duobao's house suddenly opened the door and poked her head out. She stared at Bailey Yun in confusion. You're looking for Duobao? She flew abroad yesterday. Bailey Yun asked politely, do you know which country she flew to? The sister-in-law frowned and thought for a while. It's either England or America. Duobao mainly flies these two routes. When will she be back? Tomorrow. Bailey Yun thanked her. The sister-in-law glanced at him and was about to close the door when she suddenly thought of something. She quickly poked her head out and looked at him carefully. Then she shook her head and said seriously, Sir, Duobao is a good girl. If you're just playing around, don't look for her again. Bailey Yun's expression changed. He knew that the sister-in-law had recognized him. He pursed his lips and said in a deep voice, Sister-in-law, I'm sincere about Duobao. After saying that, he left the stunned sister-in-law behind and turned to leave. In the end, Bailey Yun did not see Li Duobao. His plane was about to take off. His family sent him off at the airport. After saying goodbye reluctantly, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Xiao Bao and hugged her tightly. He pressed Xiao Bao's head against his chest and said in a low voice, Xiao Bao, I'm leaving. I'll come back to see you every month. I'll work hard and try to develop my career in the country as soon as possible. Listen to your parents. Don't make me worry. Xiao Bao lay on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Finally, she slowly reached out her hand and placed it on his back. She softly grunted. Bailey Yun was surprised and hugged her tightly. Finally, she kissed him on the forehead and said, Son, wait for me to come back. Bailey Yun let go of Xiao Bao and dragged his suitcase. He turned around and did not look at her again. He was afraid that if he looked at her again, he would not have the courage to walk out of there. Seeing that his back was about to disappear at the security checkpoint, Xiao Bao suddenly shouted, Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back. Bailey Yun's body suddenly froze. He turned around in disbelief and saw Xiao Bao's teary eyes. He threw down his things and ran towards Xiao Bao. He rushed to him at an extremely fast speed and picked him up from the ground. He hugged him tightly in his arms and his heart was beating wildly. Son, what did you just say? Xiao Bao wrapped her arms around his neck and smiled as tears streamed down her face. Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back. Good son, Daddy loves you. Bailey Yun kissed him hard on the cheek as tears rolled down his cheeks. Shame, you're already an adult and you're still crying. Don't let your great-grandmother and the others see this. Xiao Bao smiled through her tears. She took out a handkerchief from her pocket and wiped his tears. Bailey Yun hugged him and smiled foolishly. She pressed her forehead against his little one. Son, I'm so happy. Xiao Bao bared her teeth and made a face. Old Madam and the others had red eyes and used handkerchiefs to wipe the corners of their eyes. After a short reunion, Bai Lian still boarded the plane to the United States. However, this time, he no longer had any regrets in his heart. He was filled with a sense of responsibility. He was a father. He had the responsibility to take care of his son. He had to create better conditions for his son. With such surging emotions, he once again stepped onto America's soil. In the blink of an eye, it was March. The scenery was bright and beautiful, and spring was in full bloom. Imperial Kindergarten paid more attention to quality education. Every year at the end of March, it would organize a spring outing for the older children to cultivate their ability to live independently and encourage them to get close to and love nature. There were a total of 20 children in this year's kindergarten class. This year's spring outing was stricter than previous years. The school's teachers would take the children to a relatively remote mountain village and let them live together for 2 days and 1 night. Of course, the school would ensure the children's safety. After all, these children were the treasures of rich families. If any of them were to have an accident, the school would be in serious trouble. The night before the spring outing, Xia Dong prepared a suitcase and a backpack for each of the 3 children at home. The suitcase contained the children's clothes, and the backpack was filled with food and water. There were also some commonly used medicines, such as cold medicine, burn medicine, and so on. Xia Dong was afraid that she would forget something, so she dragged Bailey Han out of the study and read out the things she had prepared to him. "Honey, look. What's missing?" Bailey Han touched his chin. "If you have to say what's missing, it's the two of us." Xia Dong said angrily, "I'm talking to you about something serious. Don't joke around." He stroked her hair and said softly, "Honey, the purpose of the kindergarten spring outing is to cultivate the children's ability to live independently. If you've prepared everything for them, what else do you need them to do?" Xia Dong bit her lip. "I know, but I'm just worried." Bailey Han took her into his arms and stroked her back. He said softly, "When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was already learning taekwondo and judo from my teacher. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi are boys. In the future, they will inherit the Bailey family. They can't be weak. We have to cultivate their ability to be independent from a young age." Xia Dong lay in his arms for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to you." He smiled and said, "There's one more thing, honey. I've already contacted the coach. Starting in April, the coach will teach the 3 children martial arts. Xiao Guai is a girl. Although she doesn't have to be as strict as her brothers, she still has to learn basic self-defense skills. The children of the Bailey family had to learn martial arts from a young age. It was a family tradition. Xia Dong knew about it a long time ago. Moreover, Xiao Bao had learned martial arts from Mika Kido when she was in Japan. Therefore, she didn't have any objections and nodded in agreement. "Okay, don't worry about the 3 little guys. The school will take good care of them." Bailey Han bent down and carried her to the bedroom. "It's getting late. We should rest." Beauty novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 333. In the end, the 3 school bags that Xia Dong had prepared for the children were left at home. The little guys dragged their small suitcases to the school gate to wait for the school bus. Many parents reluctantly accompanied and escorted them. Xia Dong was also one of them. Xia Dong did not know that while she was worried about the children, Bailey Han had already made arrangements. The school attached great importance to the safety of this activity. Even the location of the spring outing was only known to a few people, including the principal. This was to prevent the location from being leaked and attracting the attention of criminals. After all, these children were from wealthy families. If 1 or 2 of them were kidnapped, the school would be finished. The principal planned to hire bodyguards with excellent martial arts from a professional bodyguard company to protect the children's safety. Bailey Han got wind of this and personally went to the school to talk to the principal, expressing his willingness to sponsor the accompanying bodyguards. He had heard of financial and material sponsorship, but had never heard of manpower sponsorship. Although the principal was surprised, he still accepted Bailey Han's sponsorship because he knew that Bailey's bodyguards were very powerful. Therefore, Bailey Han transferred 10 brothers from the Dragon Gang to disguise as security guards to accompany the school bus and protect the children on the outing. The school bus slowly came and stopped at the school gate. This was a luxurious minibus. Including the driver, there were exactly 20 seats. The teacher had arranged the numbers in advance and let the children get on the bus according to the numbers. The parents helped them put their luggage into the car's suitcase. Xiao Yi and her siblings sat in the middle. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were in a row. Xiao Guai and another girl sat in front of her brothers. Xia Dong carefully adjusted their seat belts and then told them one by one, "You Gigai kids, don't quarrel. Take care of each other, okay?" Xiao Guai kissed her cheek. "Okay, Mommy." Xiao Yi was the eldest. She patted her chest. "Mommy, don't worry. I will take good care of my brother and sister." Xiao Bao said, "Mom, don't worry. We're just going out to play. Nothing will happen." The school bus was about to start, so Xia Dong and the other parents were forced to get off. She noticed that there was a black Mercedes-Benz in front and behind the school bus. When the Mercedes-Benz in the back passed in front of her, a head suddenly popped out of the window and chuckled at her. "Young madam," Xia Dong was stunned. It was not until the 3 cars were far away that she realized that the man in the security uniform was Ah Bao. It must be Ah Bao. No wonder Bailey Han was so calm. He had already arranged everything. She suddenly felt like she had been played by her husband. Tears welled up in his eyes. Bailey Han was working in his office when his phone rang. It was a terrifying ringtone. "My wife is calling, my wife is calling," he smiled and put the phone to his ear. "Wifey," then came the sound of gnashing teeth. "Bailey Han, you're in big trouble." He laughed. "You found out?" She said angrily, "Why did you hide it from me?" He laughed even more happily. "I like to see you busy like a headless fly. Oh, I'm going crazy." "You're still laughing. Do you have fun teasing me?" A certain someone was already in a state of rage. He was laughing so hard that he was almost out of breath. "Wifey, you, calm down. When we get home tonight, I'll let you do whatever you want with me, just you wait. I won't let you off." Xia Dong rubbed his chin and seriously considered whether he should use chili water or tiger stool. "Bailey Han, honey, you're too bloody and violent." After driving for more than an hour, the school bus from Imperial Kindergarten stopped at a small village about 50 kilometers away from City A. Many of the villagers in this village were working in the city, and there were only the elderly, women, and children left in the family. The culture of the villagers was also relatively simple. The school had already communicated with the village chief and rented 10 houses from 10 families for the children and teachers to stay in. As for the bodyguards, they would also sleep on the floor in the children's houses to make it easier for them to protect them. There were a total of 20 children, 9 girls and 11 boys. Because Bailey Han had specially informed the school, the teacher arranged for Xiao Yi and her siblings to stay in the same homestay. There were 8 girls and 9 boys left. 2 girls to a room, and 3 boys to a room. There was a bodyguard in each room to ensure their safety. Ah Bao was responsible for Xiao Yi and her siblings' safety. The children in the kindergarten were not surprised to see the bodyguards because they all had many bodyguards at home. When they went to and from school, they were also protected by bodyguards. However, Xiao Guai and her siblings were different because their bodyguards were old acquaintances. Xiao Guai quietly tugged at Xiao Yi's sleeve and whispered, "Brother Yi, that bodyguard looks like Uncle Bao." Xiao Yi whispered in her ear, "It doesn't look like him. He is Uncle Bao." Oh. Why is Uncle Bao here?" The little cutie blinked her eyes in confusion. The smart Xiao Yi thought for a moment, then puffed up her cheeks and said, "Because these bodyguards were sent by Daddy." "Ah. Daddy is so awesome." Xiao Guai's eyes were filled with admiration. "Shoo, don't be so loud. Don't tell anyone. This is a secret, okay?" Xiao Bao suddenly came over and bared his teeth at the 2 of them. Okay, children. Now that you have checked your rooms, please hand over all your snacks, toys, and phones." There were 2 kindergarten teachers who came with them this time. One was called Ding Lin, and the other was called Yuzhenjin. They were both beautiful girls in their early 20s. At this moment, the one who clapped her hands and announced the rules was Ding Lin. Why? I don't want to hand over my toys. We can't hand over our phones either. I want to talk to Daddy and Mommy. Many children began to protest, but Xiao Yi and the other 2 did not feel any pressure. Xiao Yi raised her chin proudly and said, "Mommy is so wise not to prepare snacks and toys." Xiao Bao grinned. He would not tell Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai that he had secretly seen his mother prepare 3 big bags of things, but his father had forcibly stopped her. Although the children strongly protested, Ding Lin and Yuzhenjin still took away their snacks and toys. 2 delicate little girls cried loudly, saying that they wanted to go home and not participate in the activity. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Fortunately, the teachers were very patient. They comforted and persuaded them to quiet down. Then, Ding Lin said, "Before we confiscate your phones, you can call Daddy and Mommy to tell them that you are safe. You can't talk for more than 5 minutes. The children hurriedly made the phone calls. After Xiao Yi dialed the number, he handed the small phone to Xiao Guai like a big brother. Xiao Guai said in a childish voice, "Mommy, we are fine now. I am very obedient and I didn't cry." Okay, I know. The teacher said that you can only talk for 5 minutes. I will give the phone to my brothers." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao also talked to Xia Dong on the phone. They manly comforted her not to worry and said that things were going smoothly. Ding Lin and Yuzhenjin finally heaved a sigh of relief when they finally took away the children's phones. Then, it was lunchtime. Everyone was given a boiled egg, a boiled potato, and a steaming hot meat bun. The children carried their lunch and returned to their little nest. Although the room was very simple, it was very clean. There was a very large wooden bed that was completely big enough for the 3 of them to lie down. The 3 children sat on small stools. Small bowls of food were placed on the small wooden table. Xiao Yi took out a stack of wet wipes from the suitcase and gave one to each child. After the 3 children wiped their hands clean, Xiao Bao picked up an egg. "Gigai, eat the meat bun first. I will peel the egg for you." Oh, Xiao Guai hugged the steaming hot meat bun and carefully took a bite. Her delicate brows furrowed. "It's so hot, silly, blow it first." Xiao Yi took the meat bun from her hands and patiently helped her blow it. "Okay, you can eat now." "Hee, thank you, big brother." Although the conditions were very difficult, the children took care of each other and were very sweet. The children took an hour of lunch break. Then, the teacher took a loudspeaker and went door to door to wake them up. Some of the children were grumpy when they woke up. After they got up, they hugged their quilts and cried loudly. The teacher's hair almost turned white from worry. She didn't know if the spring outing could be completed successfully. The bodyguards were also in a particularly heavy mood. Although the boss had said that as long as the children weren't harmed by bad people and didn't have any accidents, it was very difficult to pretend to be deaf and mute when their ears were full of the children's cries. Therefore, while Abao expressed deep sympathy for his subordinates, he was also very glad that his young master and young miss were very well behaved and never cried. "All right, children, stand properly. Now, let's start counting." After making sure that all the children were present, the teacher, Yuzhenjin, clapped her hands and said, "The arrangement for this afternoon is like this. We will first enjoy the scenery in this area. After an hour, everyone will go to the orchards and fields to help the farmers pick fruits and vegetables. At 4:30, we will gather on the grass by the river and prepare to make dinner. Is everyone understood?" "Understood," the children said in unison. Xiao Bao raised her little hand. "Teacher, I have a question." "Classmate Xiao Bao, please ask." "Teacher, is dinner prepared in the form of a picnic?" "Yes, when it's time to make dinner, I will explain some rules in detail. Now, let's enjoy the scenery first. Do you have any questions?" "No," a soft child's voice said. "Okay, now, children, please follow the team and don't get separated." Although this mountain village was remote, the natural scenery was very good. On the hillside, peach blossoms were blooming, and the clouds were rising. A clear river flowed by the side of the field. Large golden rapeseed flowers bloomed enthusiastically. An old hen was leading a group of chicks in search of food in the field, clucking happily. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 334. For the children born in the city, it was their first time seeing a real village. They widened their eyes in curiosity and ran around excitedly on the ridge of the fields. Some of the bolder children ran to the outside of the courtyard wall and peeped at the puppies at the gate of the courtyard. Woof woof woof, the puppy suddenly jumped up and bared its teeth at them warily. The children screamed and ran back, but the puppy did not chase after them. It turned out that there was a chain around its neck and the other end was tied to a pillar. The children laughed heartily and gathered their courage to go to the gate of the courtyard to play with the puppy. An old woman came out of the room when she heard the dog barking. Her right foot was not very nimble, so she walked with a limp. There was a large scar on the left side of her face. Although it was covered by her hair, it could still be seen clearly. "Ah, a monster," a little girl screamed in fear when she saw the old woman's face. "It's so scary. Is that an old witch?" Another little girl grabbed her companion's hand tightly and whispered, "Let's get out of here quickly. The old witch will eat people." Xiao Bao glared at the two timid students. "Don't talk nonsense. It's very rude." The old woman acted as if she did not hear them and limped towards them. The other children screamed and retreated. Xiao Bao stood in place and said politely, "Grandma, I'm sorry to disturb you. We want to play with the puppy. Is that okay?" The old woman's eyes were cloudy. Her gaze fell on Xiao Bao and her voice was a little hoarse. "Don't play here. The puppy is very fierce and will bite people. Go out, go out." She stretched out her arms and drove the children out as if she was driving away small animals. Then she picked up a hoe from the gate and walked towards the fields in the distance. What a strange person. Yes, yes. Xiao Bao ignored the students' discussion and walked forward with his hands behind his back. He went to find Xiao Guai, who was picking wild flowers in the fields, and Xiao Yi, who was catching butterflies on the hillside to take home as a specimen. Once the little guys integrated into the environment, they were like wild horses. The teachers did not deliberately restrict their nature. As long as they did not do anything dangerous, they were allowed to play around. An hour passed quickly. The teacher gathered the children and divided them into two groups. Each group had 10 children and was led by a teacher. Xiao Yi and the other two were in Group A, which was led by Ding Lin, and Group B, which was led by Jinjin. The large group of people headed towards Strawberry Garden. The strawberry garden in the village was about 10 mu of land. The owners of the two largest plots of land were Fu Qinghai and Li Jinda. These were the two strawberry gardens that the children were going to today. Ding Lin took the children from Group A to Fu Qinghai's strawberry field. Fu Qinghai was an honest farmer in his 50s, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. Facing so many pairs of innocent eyes, he rubbed his bark-like hands uncomfortably and said cheerfully, "Welcome to my strawberry garden." Ding Lin smiled and said, "Uncle Fu, can I trouble you to briefly explain to the children how to grow strawberries later?" Of course, of course. Everyone, follow me." Before entering the strawberry greenhouse, Fu Qinghai gave each child a small bamboo basket for them to pick strawberries. Inside the wide greenhouse, rows of strawberry trees were neatly arranged. Between the green leaves, there were red strawberries. The rich fragrance of the strawberries filled the air, and it was so sweet that it was tempting. Xiao Bao was the first to notice that there was a hunched figure squatting in front of a row not far away. Judging by her movements, she should be picking strawberries. So many people came in noisily, but she did not look back and continued to do her own thing. Although she could not see her face, Xiao Bao recognized her from her back. She was the old granny with bad legs. Ding Lin also noticed and could not help but take a few more glances. Fu Qinghai explained with a smile, "That's my wife. She has bad legs and is a little introverted. Teacher, please don't take offense." No, we're the ones who are disturbing you." Ding Lin smiled politely. "Uncle Fu, where do you think we should start?" Fu Qinghai pointed to the ground beside his feet. "Let's start here. Children, I'll explain to you the techniques of picking strawberries." The children carried their small bamboo baskets and squatted in the ditch. They looked up and listened attentively to Fu Qinghai's explanation of how to identify ripe strawberries and how to pick them. "Okay, everyone can start picking strawberries now." While the children were enthusiastically picking strawberries, Fu Qinghai walked around them and gave them pointers from time to time. Occasionally, he would explain some knowledge about growing strawberries. Because they were too young, he did not go into too much detail. Most of the time, he talked about some interesting details, such as what diseases strawberries were prone to, what insects like to eat strawberries, and so on. Xiao Guai picked a red strawberry. It was crystal clear and so cute. She could not help but sniff it and lick her pink lips. She looked up at Fu Qinghai and said sweetly, "Grandpa, these strawberries look so delicious. Can I have one?" Fu Qinghai smiled wholeheartedly. The wrinkles on his face piled up together. Little girl, although these strawberries look very clean, you still have to wash them before you can eat them. There's a sink over there. You can wash them there. He raised his hand and pointed to a spot near the door. There was a sink with a running water pipe. It was not very high and Xiao Guai could reach it on her tiptoes. Oh, thank you, Grandpa, Xiao Guai smiled brightly, revealing her cute little dimples. Her beautiful big eyes twinkled. Grandpa, can I take 3? I still have 2 older brothers, Fu Qinghai smiled and said, of course, of course. You can eat as much as you want. Other children, if you want to eat strawberries, you can also wash them at the sink. The kindergarten had already paid him a generous sum of money. The money was enough to buy a few hundred kilograms of strawberries. Okay, thank you, Grandpa, the tender voices of children sounded. It turned out that Xiao Guai was not the only child who coveted the cute strawberries. They were just too embarrassed to say it out loud. The children held strawberries in their hands and ran in 2s and 3s to the sink at the door. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao told Xiao Guai not to move and that they would go wash the strawberries. Xiao Guai refused and insisted on doing it herself. She was not greedy at all. She took 3 strawberries and ran to the sink with her little butt swaying. She lined up behind the other children. At this moment, the old woman who was picking strawberries not far away walked towards the exit with a basket full of strawberries. After Xiao Guai finished washing the strawberries, she happily walked back. She bumped into the old woman who was carrying a bamboo basket. She sweetly called out, "Hello, Grandma." The old woman stopped in her tracks and stared at Xiao Guai. After carefully examining her, a complicated expression surged in her eyes. There was shock, disbelief, and pain. Xiao Guai then noticed the scar on the old woman's face. Her little mouth opened in shock, but she did not show any fear. After staring blankly for about 2 seconds, she suddenly stretched out her little hand and showed the strawberries in her palm. She smiled brightly and said, "Grandma, thank you for your strawberries." She skipped away like a lively little rabbit. The old woman turned her head stiffly, her eyes fixed on the little figure. She watched as the little girl ran in front of the 2 little boys and fed them 1 strawberry each before putting the last one into her own mouth. The 3 children laughed merrily, and the laughter flew to her side. She opened her mouth and breathed rapidly. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. The bamboo basket in her hand seemed to weigh 1,000 kilograms, and her body was tilting towards the ground. "Wife, what's wrong with you? Are you sick?" Fu Qinghai noticed that something was wrong with his wife and hurried over. He snatched the bamboo basket from her hand and placed it on the ground, supporting her with one hand. The old woman supported her chest with one hand and slowly shook her head. "I'm fine. Go do your work. Don't worry about me. You don't look like you're fine." Fu Qinghai took out a bottle of spray from the pocket of her coat and sprayed it at her nose and mouth a few times. He grumbled, "I told you to rest at home, but you didn't listen and insisted on coming out to work. Are you feeling better now?" She nodded. "I'm much better. I'm fine now. Hurry up and go home to rest. I'll do the work in the field." She sighed. "I'm the one who dragged you down." Fu Qinghai lowered his voice and said, "We're already an old couple. Why are you still saying this? Let's go. I'll take you home." "It's okay. I can go back by myself. You should stay here and take care of the guests." The old woman patted his arm. "All right then. Be careful on the way back." Fu Qinghai sighed as he looked at his wife's back as she walked away. The old woman came out of the greenhouse and looked at the land full of spring with a dazed expression. Tears gradually welled up in her eyes. Half an hour later, the strawberry picking was completed. Each child, carrying a basket full of ripe strawberries, walked down the country lane, laughing and talking as they returned to their temporary lodgings. "Gigai, give me the bamboo basket. Big brother will help you twist it." "Gigai, I'll twist it for you." The 2 little brothers stretched out their hands at the same time to help Xiao Guai twist the bamboo basket. She looked at Xiao Yi and then looked at Xiao Bao. She smiled brightly. Don't fight with me. I'll twist it myself. Mommy said that you should do your own things. That's what a good child should do. Ding Lin, who was walking in front of them, overheard their conversation. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Bailey family's upbringing was really good. The children they raised were polite and sensible. After putting the strawberries back in their residence, the teacher led them to the field to help the farmer uncle pick vegetables. The enthusiastic uncle gave them a lot of fresh vegetables that could be used during the picnic. At 4:30 p.m., everyone gathered on the lawn by the river. The children chattered non-stop. Yuzhinjin clapped her hands to quiet them down and arranged the next tasks. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 335. Yuzhinjin announced, "Next, we will start preparing dinner. For tonight's dinner, you will need to find your own ingredients and collect your own firewood. As for the pots, pans, ladles, and other kitchen utensils, they will be prepared by the teachers. Tonight's dinner will also be cooked by the teachers." Ding Lin added, "We will still follow the previous grouping. Group A and Group B, each group will elect a group leader. The group leader will arrange for everyone to search for ingredients or collect firewood. Each group will be given a map. You just need to search for ingredients according to the houses marked on the map. Do you understand?" A little boy raised his small hand. "Teacher, we can only go to the places marked on the map to find ingredients?" "Yes, that's right." Ding Lin did not explain. The houses marked on the map were arranged by them in advance and they paid the owners. "Then what do we need to find?" "There are some dishes that I don't even recognize." A little girl said softly. "It's okay. There are names and pictures of the ingredients on the back of the map." Ding Lin passed the map to the children. Sure enough, there were pictures on the back of the map. There were cucumbers, potatoes, tomatoes, and so on. A few minutes later, Ding Lin said, "Now that you have received the map, you have to find the ingredients and firewood in an hour, then come back here. Do you understand?" The children all shouted at the same time, "Understood." "Now, I'll leave everything to you. Teacher, you and I won't bother about everyone. We'll just wait for everyone to come back and cook. We'll give a reward to the group that finishes quickly and well. On the other hand, we'll punish the group that doesn't do well. Okay, the time starts now." Ding Lin looked at the watch on her wrist and seriously noted down the time. The children who were initially a little lazy immediately became alert when they heard that it was a competition. The two groups immediately separated and gathered for a meeting. Group A had Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. The two of them were the most popular in the class, so everyone unanimously decided that they would be the group leader and vice group leader. Xiao Yi was the big brother, so Xiao Bao also listened to his orders. Xiao Yi puffed out her chest, and her pink cheeks looked serious. She seemed to be giving orders. "Xiao Bao, you go with Xiao Guai, Xiao Hao, Xiao Han, and Cici to look for ingredients. Jiejia, Hongxian, Xiao Rui, and Tian Tian will stay here to collect firewood." There were 4 girls and 6 boys in their group. They worked in pairs of 2 and 3. Xiao Yi guessed that the school had already prepared the ingredients. As long as they found the right farmer, it should be easy. Therefore, he asked Xiao Guai and Xiao Bao to go together. Xiao Bao raised his right hand and saluted. "Team leader, I promise to complete the mission." The 4 girls were amused by him, and they started to work while talking and laughing. Team B left after them and headed in a different direction. Xiao Yi led the soldiers to the forest in front. Among them, the oldest was only 6 years old. It was obviously difficult for them to break off the branches from the trees. Xiao Yi asked the 2 girls to be responsible for collecting the existing branches in the forest, while he and the 2 boys were responsible for the branches on the trees. Xiao Yi looked at them and frowned. If this went on, there was no way they could collect enough firewood to make dinner. He pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted, "Uncle Bao! Ah, Bao, who was hiding somewhere, quickly appeared. In front of outsiders, he did not call Xiao Yi young master. Instead, he called him by his name. Xiao Yi, what's the matter? Uncle Bao, you must have brought a dagger, right? Xiao Yi quickly ran in front of him and stretched out her hand. Lend me the dagger. Bao was alert. What do you want to do? I won't do anything bad. Hurry up and lend it to me. Okay. Bao pulled out a dagger from his calf and handed it over. This dagger is very sharp. Be careful. Got it. Thanks. You can disappear now. Xiao Yi turned and ran. Bao's mouth twitched. How could he be at ease and disappear when the young master had such a dangerous item in his hands? Thus, he stood in place and waited to see what Xiao Yi was going to do. Little Wingsy ran back to his companions and mumbled something to them. Bao saw Little Wingsy stab the dagger at his waist and walk up to a pine tree that was as thick as a bowl. Little Wingsy wrapped his arms around it and clamped his legs together before climbing up. Bao's heart was in his throat. Xiao Yi, hurry up and come down. It's dangerous. Xiao Yi was an expert at climbing trees. He quickly climbed up and soon reached a branch that was as thick as a wrist. His small body stood on it, and he looked like he was going to fall at any time. The two girls could not help but scream. Bao rushed forward and stood under the tree with his arms open. Xiao Yi, it's too dangerous. Hurry up and come down. Xiao Yi's expression did not change. Uncle Bao, don't worry. I'll be fine. Don't stand here. I'm going to chop the branches. Everyone else, start working. We don't have much time left. So this was what he was going to use his dagger for. Xiao Yi held onto the tree trunk with one hand and held the dagger with the other. He aimed at the branches beside him and chopped them down. It was indeed a sharp dagger. Even though he did not have much strength, a branch that was as thick as 2 fingers was chopped off and fell to the ground. When the other 2 boys saw this, they looked for small trees within their strength and planned to break off the branches. Xiao Yi said, "Don't choose those small saplings. They will die if they break off the branches. Also, pine trees and cypress trees are flammable. Even wet firewood can be ignited. Look for these 2 types of branches." The oldest, Hong Xian, asked curiously, "Xiao Yi, how do you know so much?" Xiao Yi raised his eyebrows proudly. "Daddy told me." Fortunately, Daddy had told him about his survival experiences on a deserted island. That was how he learned this knowledge. Just as the woodcutter Xiao Yi was busy chopping firewood, Xiao Bao led Xiao Guai and the others to start collecting ingredients according to the route on the map. The process was very smooth. Soon, they had collected 2 big bags of ingredients. Naturally, the 2 boys were holding them. The last house was Fu Qinghai's house. Xiao Bao asked the boys who were holding the bags to wait by the roadside. He led Xiao Guai and Cici forward and knocked on the door. "Hello, is anyone home?" After a few minutes, they heard the door creak open. An old lady appeared at the door. The moment she saw Xiao Guai, her eyes lit up. But soon, her eyes dimmed again. She asked, "What can I do for you?" Xiao Guai tilted his head, revealing his cute little dimples. "Grandma, can you give us some vegetables?" The old lady's voice softened. "What kind of vegetables do you want?" Xiao Guai quickly tugged at Xiao Bao's hand. "Brother, take a look. What's missing?" "Grandma, we also need cucumbers, potatoes, eggs, and fish. Do you have any of these?" The old lady looked at Xiao Bao and then at Xiao Guai. So they were siblings. The 2 children did look a little alike. She nodded. "You two, come in with me." With that, she walked into the yard and pulled the puppy aside to prevent it from biting the children. "Cici, stay here and wait for us," Xiao Bao instructed. He held Xiao Guai's hand and followed behind the old lady. The yard wasn't big. Some flowers and plants were planted, and it was very clean. There were 4 or 5 red brick bungalows. The old lady led them directly to the kitchen. She bent down in front of the fridge to look for what they needed. She asked Xiao Guai casually, "Little girl, you look very cute. Do you look like your mother?" Xiao Guai replied crisply, "Yes, everyone says that I look like my mother. Grandaunt also said that I look exactly like my mother when we were young. It's as if we were cast from the same mold, Pa." An egg slipped from the old lady's hand and smashed on the ground. Xiao Bao said, "Grandma, where's the broom? I'll help you clean it." "No need." The old lady refused, but quickly changed her mind. "It's in the yard outside. Help me get it." Xiao Bao responded and turned to run into the yard. The old lady suddenly went up to Xiao Guai and asked in a low voice, "Little girl, what's your mother's name?" Xiao Guai blinked her big beautiful eyes. "Grandma, why do you want to know my mother's name?" Daddy had once taught her not to tell strangers her parents' names. The old lady was stunned and said, "Because you look very much like my friend's daughter." Xiao Guai replied with an "Oh." She tilted her head and looked at her, as if she was considering whether the old lady was a good person. After a moment, she smiled and said, "My mother's name is Xia Dong." Xia Dong. Xia Dong. It's really her. The old lady's body suddenly trembled, and she almost knocked over everything in her hands. Her face suddenly became very ugly. She opened her mouth and gasped for breath, as if someone was choking her neck. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Xiao Guai was so anxious that she was about to cry. Xiao Bao happened to walk in with a broom. When he saw the situation, he was shocked and quickly ran forward to help the old lady sit on a chair. "Grandma, are you okay? Don't be afraid." I'm fine." The old lady comforted them as she took out a small spray from her pocket and sprayed it in front of her nose. After a few minutes, she finally calmed down. She let out a long sigh and looked at the concerned children around her. She couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat, and tears almost fell from her eyes. "Grandma, are you okay?" The 2 children asked in unison. "I'm fine." "Grandma is fine." The old lady wiped the corners of her eyes and forced a smile. However, because of the scar on her face, her smile looked a little scary. She reached out to touch the 2 children's hair and said softly, "How old are you?" Xiao Guai said first, "We're 5 years old. We're in kindergarten." "Good, very good." The old lady's eyes were full of smiles. She looked at them carefully and asked softly, "How are your parents?" "Come and see." Hongcha 866. Chapter 336. Xiao Guai nodded proudly. "Very good. My daddy loves my mommy very much." Although Xiao Bao was a little confused, he felt that the old grandma was not a bad person and nodded. "They're all very good." "That's good." The old grandma's smile widened. After a while, she retracted her hand and said, "I've prepared everything you need. Go back early. It's going to be dark soon." She put the things she had tidied into a convenience bag and sent them to the gate. "Thank you, Grandma." "Goodbye, Grandma." The children waved at her. She smiled and waved back. Her hunched body leaned against the gate until their figures disappeared from her sight. Then, she slowly retracted her gaze and returned to the yard with a lonely expression. When the sun set, the children rushed back to the river with the treasures they had found. Soon, they found 2 cooking stoves on the lawn. The teacher had already washed the pots and pans and was waiting for them to come back so that they could start cooking. "Wow, teacher, you're so amazing. Are these used for cooking? How did you build them?" Ding Lin had already used the firewood Xiao Yi and the others had picked up to start the stove. She wiped the sweat off her face and smiled as she explained to the children how to build a simple stove and how to ignite the firewood to make the fire burn brighter. Then, she instructed the students in Team A that the boys would be in charge of fetching water, the girls would be in charge of washing the vegetables, and she would handle the fresh fish by the river. Under the teacher's lead, the 2 groups of people started to cook. Halfway through cooking, Team B ran out of firewood. The children stared at each other, and Yuzhinjin could not help but break out in cold sweat. The children who were in charge of collecting firewood were very innocent. They raised their little hands pitifully. Teacher, we've already worked very hard. Boo-hoo, it's okay. Teacher will think of a way. Yuzhinjin comforted them. She threw down the half-cooked vegetables and ran to Team A's side. Teacher Ding, do you have enough firewood? We have enough. Why? Ding Lin was busy with the fish in the pot and did not notice what was happening in Team B. Hong Xian shouted, Teacher Ding, Team B ran out of firewood. Yuzhinjin coughed and awkwardly said, Yeah, we ran out of firewood. If you have extra, can you lend me some? Sure, Xiao Yi chopped a lot, so there should be some extra. Take some with you. Ding Lin generously gave her half of the firewood. Woodcutter Xiao Yi was in a good mood when he saw that the firewood he chopped could help his opponent. Dinner was finally ready. The girls had already laid out a beautiful tablecloth on the lawn and arranged the bowls and chopsticks. The two sets of dishes were placed together and everyone formed a big circle. The children who were picky at home seemed to have been starved for a long time. Their eyes were glowing with a green light as they stared at the fragrant dishes and kept swallowing their saliva. All right, let's eat. Don't waste food. At the teacher's command, the children picked up their bowls and wolfed down the food. They were starving. Gigai, be careful. It's hot. Xiao Yi picked up an egg with her chopsticks and placed it in Xiao Gigai's bowl. Xiao Bao immediately removed the bones from the fish and placed it in her bowl. Gigai, eat the fish. There are no bones. The other girls were envious. They also wanted such a handsome and caring brother. They wanted to go home and ask their mommy to give birth to one. After dinner, the stars were already shining in the sky. The teacher used the leftover firewood to make a bonfire. Everyone sat around the bonfire and listened to the teacher's summary of the day's activities. Ding Lin glanced at the children who were staring at her and said, Everyone did a great job today. Did you all learn a lot? Yes, they said in unison. We would like to especially commend Xiao Yi. He has great organizational and leadership skills. He also did a great job collecting firewood. Please give him a round of applause. Enthusiastic applause rang out. Brother Yi, you're so awesome. Xiao Gigai clapped excitedly. Xiao Yi was used to being praised since he was young, but he had never been as happy as he was today. He received everyone's admiring gazes. This was the first time he felt shy in front of so many people. His handsome little face was flushed red and his eyes were sparkling. He didn't know where to look. Group A, who won the competition, was rewarded with a chance to talk to their parents on the phone for 5 minutes. The children in Group A were so happy that they jumped up and down. The children in Group B could only look on with envy. Group B, who lost the competition, was punished with a confession of truth. Everyone had to say something from the bottom of their heart. The children all talked at once. I don't like green peppers. Every time mommy makes me eat green peppers, I secretly spit them out. I'm very timid. I don't dare to sleep alone at night. I hate my desk mate because he always bullies me. Finally, it was the turn of an introverted little girl named Louis. She stood up and looked at Xiao Yi with her clear eyes. She mustered up her courage and said, I like Bailey Yi. I want to marry him when I grow up. Everyone burst into laughter. Lu Yi sat down with a red face. She bit her lip and lowered her head without saying a word. The girls sitting next to her turned around and said something to her. Her head hung even lower. Xiao Yi, I didn't expect you to be so popular. Xiao Bao poked Xiao Yi's arm with a mischievous smile. Xiao Yi's cheeks turned red again. Xiao Bao laughed at him for 20 years because of this. Yuzhinjin clapped her hands and helped Lu Yi and Xiao Yi out of the situation. Everyone is tired today. Let's go home and rest early. Teacher Ding and I will wake everyone up tomorrow morning. After breakfast, we will return to the city. Does anyone have any questions? No. All right then. Uncle Bodyguard will send everyone back to their respective residences now. Everyone needs to wash up and change on their own. Don't run around at night. Gigai can sleep. Any questions? No. Yuzhinjin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these precious children knew how to brush their teeth and wash their faces. Otherwise, she and Ding Lin would be very busy. However, it was still too early for her to be optimistic. This was a rural area. Several families did not have bathrooms at all. The children could not bathe either. There were a few spoiled children. Although they said that there was no problem, their faces were not clean. They did not know how to comb their hair and had to be taken care of by teachers. Little winged hero walked at the front in high spirits, leading his little brother and little sister back home. The owner of the homestay had already turned on the lights in the room and prepared 2 basins of hot water to welcome their return. Gigai, you can't bathe in Uncle's house. Just wipe yourself. Xiao Yi wet a towel in the basin, wrung it dry, and handed it to Xiao Guai. Xiao Bao had already found pajamas from Xiao Guai's suitcase and placed them by the bed. Gigai, we'll go out first. If you need anything, just shout. Got it. Xiao Guai responded softly. After the 2 brothers left, she closed the door and was about to take off her clothes to wipe herself when she suddenly heard Xiao Bao's voice from outside. Grandma, why are you here? Xiao Guai quickly put down the towel, opened the door, and called out crisply, Grandma, you're here. The old woman leaned on a walking stick, held a flashlight, and held a thermos in her hand. She smiled and said, Grandma was worried that you didn't eat enough, so I specially brought chicken soup for you. Come, hurry into the house and drink it while it's hot. The children looked at her eager eyes and didn't have the heart to tell her that they were actually very full now. Hurry, don't stand at the door. Hurry up and come in. The old woman sat on a chair and opened the thermos. A fragrant smell immediately wafted out. 3 small bowls were filled with soup and placed on the table. The children looked at each other and finally reached out to pick up the bowls at the same time. Xiao Guai took a sip, smiled, and sighed with satisfaction. Wow, it's delicious. It's as delicious as Mommy's. The old woman smiled. Drink more if it's delicious. Okay. The old woman looked around the room and saw the 2 basins and the pajamas on the bed. She immediately understood and said softly, I can take a bath at home. Do you want to come? Xiao Yi didn't know what happened to Xiao Bao and the others when they were looking for ingredients, so she was still wary of the old woman. She said politely, Grandma, we don't have to trouble you. We are already very grateful that you brought us chicken soup. The old woman looked a little disappointed. She glanced at Xiao Guai, who was holding a bowl of soup and drinking it, and said, How about this? I'll help your sister wipe her body. She's young and can't do these things by herself. Xiao Yi was still hesitating, but Xiao Bao had already agreed. Okay, then I'll have to trouble you, Grandma. 10 minutes later. The door was closed, and Xiao Guai's giggles could be heard from time to time. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi were squatting in a corner of the yard. Xiao Yi muttered unhappily, How can you agree to a stranger's request so casually? Xiao Bao lowered his voice and said, Grandma isn't a bad person. I've already checked. Also, didn't you just drink her chicken soup? Xiao Yi muttered, Grandma was so enthusiastic. I couldn't refuse. Xiao Bao patted his shoulder. It's okay. She really isn't a bad person. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Xiao Guai was wearing cute plaid bear pajamas, and her little face was clean. The old woman held her in her arms and wiped her face with children's moisturizer. Her rough fingers rubbed against her cheeks, and Xiao Guai couldn't help but laugh. Grandma, it's so itchy. It'll be done soon. Bear with it. The old woman's eyes were kind, and her movements were very gentle. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi saw that they were getting along so well. They looked at each other and were a little surprised. The old woman seemed to like Xiao Guai very much. When you go to bed at night, cover yourself with a blanket and close the door. If you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, wake up Uncle to accompany you. Do you understand? The old woman reminded the 3 children repeatedly before she left. Okay, Grandma. Be careful when you go home. It's very dark on the road. The 3 children walked her to the gate of the yard. The old woman waved at the children. Go back to sleep. It wasn't until the 3 small figures left that she sighed and limped home with the help of her walking stick. Come and see, Hongcha 866. Chapter 337. Xia Dong was not used to the nights when the children were not at home. As she walked, she accidentally walked to the door of the children's room. She suddenly remembered that they were not at home and returned to the bedroom in loneliness. Bailey Han came out of the study and saw Xia Dong in such a depressed state. She was curled up on a plump fabric sofa. She looked so small and pitiful. He squeezed to her side and pulled her into his arms. You miss the children? Yes. Xia Dong was like a caterpillar. She moved into the most comfortable position in his arms and said sullenly, Hai is also asleep. I suddenly feel like I've become a housewife with nothing to do. All I do is revolve around my husband and children. When you're not at home, I don't know what to do. Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her hair. Do you want to go out to work? She looked up at him, her eyes full of anticipation. Will you agree? The corners of his lips turned up. What do you think? You agree? Xia Dong hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him hard on the lips. He held the back of her head and deepened the kiss. He did not let go of her until their breathing became irregular. His voice was magnetic and hoarse. If you feel bored and want to go out to work, I won't stop you. But you can't work too hard. Yes, they definitely won't. Xia Dong had yet to recover from that tender kiss. Her cheeks were flushed, and her voice was soft and charming. But, will Grandma and Mom and Dad disagree? Most wealthy families did not want their daughters-in-law to show her face outside. He hugged her tightly. Grandma is very open-minded. As long as we can convince her, Dad and Mom will be fine. It's not good for me to show my face in this matter. You should have a good talk with them. Xia Dong understood. If she persuaded the 3 elders, they would definitely think that Bailey Han was too obedient and controlled by her. They might even have some ideas about her. So it was more appropriate for her to do it herself. Thank you, hubby. I thought you wouldn't support me. She lay on his chest, her heart full of warmth. Bailey Han stroked her long hair and chuckled. I like to see you working. You're beautiful. He clearly remembered that when she was the editor-in-chief of Charm magazine, she had discussed advertising cooperation with Renjijia. She had exuded a mature and confident charm, which had made his eyes light up. Xia Dong wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned against him. She smiled and said, Hubby, you're so sweet tonight. Are you afraid that I'll punish you? He raised his eyebrows. How can that be? Didn't I say that you can do whatever you want with me? Have you thought of how you want to deal with me? A mischievous smile appeared on Xia Dong's face. I didn't have any ideas at first, but now I suddenly have an idea. What do you want to do? He bit her ear, emphasizing the last word. It was a word that made people's imagination run wild. She unceremoniously bit his earlobe and snorted. I'll let you see how powerful I am. Let's see if you dare to hide it from me in the future. She was still brooding over the fact that he had secretly sent bodyguards to protect the children. His sexy laughter came from the depths of his throat as his chest heaved up and down. Wifey, I can't wait to see how powerful you are. She pinched his face and said to him in a libertine tone, Little girl, go to bed and wait for me. His chest heaved up and down even more. He almost laughed until he was out of breath. Wifey, so you have this kind of hobby when you're angry. Xia Dong's cheeks flushed red. However, since she had already taken this step, she was going to go all out. She angrily patted his chest. Be serious. I'm being serious. Bailey Han held back his laughter. It wasn't easy for him to get this kind of benefit. He was afraid that if he continued to laugh, his wife would shrink back. He nodded seriously. Okay, master. This servant will go lie on the bed and wait for your pleasure. That's right. Go quickly. Xia Dong deliberately touched the bulge in front of his chest and then quickly jumped down from his body. By the time she found what she needed and rushed back to the bedroom, Bailey Han had really stripped himself down to a pair of shorts and was spread out on the bed like a pancake. His limbs were spread out, and a certain part of his body was already standing up impatiently, saying, "Hey, hey, hey. Hello." Xia Dong's cheeks reddened, but a certain person's expression was extremely calm. It was as if he was talking about the weather as he called out to her. "Master, this servant can't wait any longer." Xia Dong almost spat out blood. He was too perverted. "Don't be anxious. I'll be right there." She coughed and thought of her punishment plan. She forced herself to calm down and climbed onto the ridiculously large bed. She took out a few neckties from her pocket and tied his wrists to the headboard. Wifey? Bailey Han had a bad premonition. His wife had turned into a little devil. He could almost see 2 small horns on her head. Xia Dong smiled evilly. After confirming that he couldn't move, she knelt by the bed and slowly took off her clothes. After taking off a piece, she casually threw it off the bed. Not long after, she was only left with a pair of black lacy underwear. Her silky long hair poured down and half covered her beautiful figure. Her soft and towering breasts were enveloped by the soft light and her entire body was suffused with an alluring luster. Bailey Han's Adam's apple bobbed, and his deep eyes blazed with fire. She deliberately threw him a coquettish glance and supported herself with her arms. Like a lazy little wild cat, she slowly climbed up his body. Her silky smooth skin was tightly pressed against him, rubbing against him inch by inch. Her buds had already bloomed and were slowly moving up his sturdy abdomen. As she teased him, sparks flew in all directions, almost setting the prairie ablaze. Her concave area rubbed against his convex area. The moist heat soaked the black lacy underwear and stained his scalding skin. His mouth was dry and his eyes were burning. He panted heavily and his smooth chin was raised in impatience. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He was already having a hard time enduring and was about to explode from the pain. But that little devil was still unwilling to let him go. She deliberately rubbed against his chest and licked his earlobe with the tip of her tongue. She whispered seductively, "Ahan, I'm so hot." He panted heavily and looked at the little woman on top of him. His eyes had already turned red from lust. "Wifey, let go of me." "No, I haven't played enough." Her slender fingers grasped his perky buttocks and slowly tightened. Her movements were very jerky but very seductive. He raised his chin high and was almost unable to control himself. After he exploded, she wiped the liquid on her hands and got off the bed with a naughty smile on her lips. "Hubby, I'm going to take a shower. Gigai can lie here." Little rascal, she clearly knew that a certain part of his body was not appeased and was even more inflamed. She actually left him here just like that. Bailey Han gritted his teeth and the sound of fabric tearing could be heard. Before Xia Dong could react, her body was already in the air. The next moment, she was lying on the soft mattress. A certain someone's hideous face that was tortured by lust suddenly appeared above her. "Little rascal, you want to escape after lighting me up?" A certain someone imprisoned her in his arms. His hot breath sprayed on her face and his low and hoarse voice was filled with lust. Over the next few hours, Bailey Han tortured her until she cried and begged for mercy. Reality proved that she would always be the weaker party in front of him. Even with the help of neckties and ropes, she could not succeed in her counterattack. This was what it meant to reap what you sow. The next day, Xia Dong rubbed her aching waist and came to the conclusion that made her cry. On the other side, the children in the kindergarten were extremely excited. They could finally leave this small mountain village and go home. After breakfast, the children dragged their small suitcases and ran happily to the minibus. Little Wingsy and his siblings walked at a leisurely pace at the back of the group. Lil Guai looked back at the village, her beautiful eyes filled with reluctance. Big brother Wingsy, I think this place is pretty good. Xiao Bao touched her hair and said seriously, if that's the case, then Gigai shouldn't go home with us. You can stay here. Xiao Yi also looked serious. Yeah, we'll tell Daddy and Mommy that Gigai can't bear to leave this place. Ah, Xiao Guai's little face immediately fell. She said pitifully, are you going to leave me behind? Xiao Yi nodded. Yeah, you said you couldn't bear to leave this place. Xiao Guai frowned and almost cried. I just couldn't bear to leave. I didn't say I was going to stay here. Brother Yi, don't leave me behind, okay? I miss Daddy and Mommy so much, Xiao Bao laughed. Little fool, we're just teasing you. How could we leave you behind? Xiao Yi touched her head and sighed. Gigai, why are you so naive? I'm so worried that you'll be sold off one day and still help them count the money. Xiao Guai was stunned. Then, she said angrily, you're so mean. When I get home, I'm going to tell Daddy and Mommy that you bullied me. In the distance, Teacher Ding Lin shouted, Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, Xiao Guai, it's only the three of you left. Hurry up and get in the car. Coming, Xiao Bao answered and grabbed the suitcases from Xiao Guai. Let's go. The teacher is rushing us. Xiao Bao dragged the two suitcases forward. Xiao Yi dragged the suitcases with one hand and held Xiao Guai's hand with the other. Xiao Guai suddenly stopped in her tracks and pointed to a big tree on the right. Brother Yi, look over there. It looks like an old granny. Xiao Yi followed her line of sight. It really was that strange old granny. She leaned on a walking stick and leaned against the big tree. She kept staring in their direction, but no one knew what she was looking at. Yeah, it's the old granny. Let's go. Xiao Yi turned around and tugged at Xiao Guai's little hand. Brother Yi, you guys go first. I'll go say goodbye to Granny. Xiao Guai ignored Xiao Yi's attempts to stop her and ran toward the big tree. The old woman looked at Xiao Guai running over from afar with a hint of warmth in her eyes. Xiao Guai ran in front of her and smiled. Granny, we're leaving. Goodbye. The old woman touched her head and smiled kindly. Goodbye. The minibus drove far away. Xiao Yi looked back and saw the old woman standing beside the big tree, staring at them from afar. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 338. After returning home, the children told Xia Dong and Bailey Han about the old lady. They all thought that the old lady liked children, so she took special care of them and did not take it to heart. The impact of this spring outing on the children was obvious. Xiao Guai, who had always been picky about food, was not only not picky about food, but also ate all the food in her bowl at every meal, not wasting a single bit. Little Wingsy and Little Treasure both had the thought that they were not strong enough, so when Bailey Han announced that he had hired a coach to teach them martial arts, they cheered and jumped for joy. Their spirits were high as they looked forward to the arrival of April. Just as they were craning their necks and gazing into the distance, April stepped into the world with the warm spring breeze. The Taekwondo and Judo coaches also arrived as scheduled. Every morning at 6:00, the three little guys were dragged out of bed by Bailey Han with sleepy eyes and brought to the training room. At first, the three of them were not used to it. They stood weakly in the empty training room and yawned. Slowly, after they got used to it, they did not need to be called. When it was time, they would get out of bed and wait for the coach on the training field. Gigai was waiting for the coach. The day before the Qingming festival, Bailey Yun came back from the United States to visit Xiao Bao. In the afternoon, the plane arrived in City A. After he walked out of the airport, he looked at his watch and got into the car that his family's chauffeur had sent to pick him up. He did not go home directly, but asked the chauffeur to drive the car to the gate of Imperial Kindergarten. When the car arrived at the kindergarten, school had just finished. Xiao Bao and her siblings came out of the school gate and saw Bailey Yun leaning on the Rolls-Royce at a glance. He, who always valued his image, looked travel-worn. However, this did not detract from his handsome appearance and elegant temperament. He lazily crossed his arms, and there was a warm smile on his handsome face. He looked handsome and unrestrained. Many parents who came to pick up their children were attracted by his outstanding figure. Second uncle, Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai shouted excitedly and enthusiastically threw themselves at him. Xiao Bao pursed her pink lips. She lowered her head slightly and walked slowly at the back. Little guys, did you miss second uncle? Bailey Yun snorted on Xiao Yi's head, then picked up Xiao Guai and kissed her cheek. Finally, he looked at Xiao Bao, who was slowly walking towards him. After leaving City A after the Spring Festival, although Xiao Bao called him Daddy at the airport, he refused to call him every time he called, which made Bailey Yun very depressed. At this moment, the awkward child dawdled for a long time before approaching him. Bailey Yun placed Xiao Guai on the ground. He reached out his arm and pulled Xiao Bao, who was standing a meter away from him, over. He rubbed his hair hard and chuckled. Son, Daddy is back. Don't you want to give Daddy a warm hug? Xiao Bao puffed up his cheeks and turned his face awkwardly. Oh, welcome back. Yo, you're really cold. I've been working overtime these past few days in vain, just to squeeze out a few more days to accompany you. Bai Lian's tone was lonely and bleak, just like a resentful woman who was despised by others. Xiao Bao could not help but turn to look at him. At such a close distance, he saw that his eyelids were slightly green and his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed like he had not slept well for a long time. Xiao Bao had a very complicated feeling in his heart. When he was not around, he would miss him, but when he really appeared in front of him, he felt helpless and did not know how to face him. In short, Xiao Bao accepted the fact that Bailey Yun was his father, but he was not used to interacting with him. His little eyes flickered, and his lips moved as he said dryly, You don't have to work so hard in the future. Bailey Yun was overjoyed by his seemingly caring words. He smiled and carried him up. Son, I'll take it that you're concerned about me, ha ha ha. Xiao Bao's pink little ears were slightly red. While the father and son were talking about their feelings, Xiao Yi had already held Xiao Guai's hand, quietly retreated, and got into the car. Son, did you miss me when I wasn't around? Bailey Yun placed Xiao Bao in the Rolls-Royce and sat beside him. He smiled and said, I missed you a lot. Xiao Bao said in a muffled voice, It's okay, I didn't miss you a lot. Bai Lian cupped his heart and said with melancholy, Son, you hurt my heart too much. Xiao Bao seemed to be used to having such a thick-skinned father. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he felt a little happy. Bailey Yun could stay in the country for 3 days this time. He planned to take Xiao Bao out to play during the Tomb Sweeping Day holiday to improve the relationship between father and son. On the day of the Tomb Sweeping Day, Xia Dong and Bailey Han brought Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to visit their mother's grave. As if to celebrate the festival, it started to drizzle. The rain was very light, so there was no need to hold an umbrella. At most, it would be a little wet when it touched people. Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai each held a bouquet of lilies in their arms as the family of 4 walked on the tree-lined road. There were many people like them who were visiting the grave. They were in 2s and 3s, and their expressions were solemn or sad. Xia Dong did not expect to meet Su Yunxian's parents here. Su Bolin held Mrs. Su's waist as the two of them walked alone. They looked sad, and Mrs. Su's eyes were red. Uncle, Auntie, Bailey Han greeted them politely. Su Bolin and his wife were stunned for a moment before they nodded. You're here to visit the grave too? Bailey Han turned his head to look at Xia Dong. We're here to visit mother-in-law. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Ever since Su Yunxian's matter was exposed, the two families had completely fallen out and had not interacted for a long time. Su Bolin coughed and said, Then go quickly. Don't delay. Bailey Han nodded politely. The family of 4 was about to leave when Su Bolin pursed his lips and suddenly said, Han, Bailey Han turned around. Uncle, is there anything else? Sue Boland's eyes were filled with guilt. He hesitated for a moment before he slowly said, I haven't had the chance to apologize to you and Xiaodong. Today, I want to apologize to you on behalf of Yun Xian. I don't expect you to forgive her, but I hope you don't hate her. Bailey Han said calmly, Uncle, let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again. Hating someone was actually a very difficult thing. Because of hatred, you always remembered the reason for your hatred. You remembered the pain that others had caused you. Every time you recalled it, it was like you were being dismembered. In front of Xia Ling's tombstone were flowers that the children had presented to her. Xia Dong went forward and squatted in front of the tombstone. She stared at the small photo on the tombstone and said gently, Mom, Xiao Guai's illness has been cured. Han and I have given you a little grandson. Are you happy? Mom, Han is very good to me. We live a very happy life. You can rest assured in heaven. Every time Xia Dong came to visit her mother, she felt bad. She felt that it was unfair for her mother. She felt that it was a pity that her mother did not have a good day. Her nose was sour and her eyes were moist. Bailey Han helped her up from the ground. He stared at Xia Ling's photo with a serious expression and said, Mom, don't worry. I will take good care of Xia and the children. While they were reminiscing about Xia Ling, they did not know that a thin figure was hiding behind the tombstone behind them. Every word they said fell into her ears. Her thin shoulders trembled slightly as if she was suppressing something. Honey, let's go. Bailey Han put his arm around Xia Dong's waist and beckoned the two children to follow. The figure could not help but straighten up. She looked past the tombstone and greedily wanted to take a few more glances at them. Unexpectedly, she had squatted for too long, and her legs were already numb. In addition, her right leg was not flexible to begin with. As her body leaned forward, she stumbled and bumped into the fruit plate in front of the tombstone. The fruit plate fell over with a clang, and the apples inside rolled out. Hey, I think I heard something. Lil Guai and little Wingzy held hands as they walked at the back. Lil Guai's ears were sharp. Suddenly, they stopped in their tracks and looked around. However, they did not discover anything because the figure had quickly retreated behind the tombstone. An apple rolled to her feet with a gurgle. Xiao Guai stared at the big red apple at her feet and shouted, Mommy, there's an apple. It's so strange. Where did the apple come from? Maybe someone accidentally dropped it during the ceremony. Xia Dong also looked around. Finally, she found several apples scattered in front of the tombstone on the left. She pointed there and said, It probably rolled over from there. Then I'll take this apple back. Xiao Guai bent down to pick up the apple and ran to the tombstone on the left. The person hiding in the back didn't have time to dodge and was hit by her. Xiao Guai looked at the figure in surprise and smiled sweetly. Grandma, you're here too. The old woman had no choice but to stand up. With her back facing Xia Dong, she lowered her voice and said, Yes, Xiao Guai, hurry over. Your daddy and mommy are still waiting for you. Xia Dong and Bailey Han were surprised to see the old woman's back. Xia Dong asked Xiao Yi, does Xiao Guai know that old woman? Xiao Yi had already recognized the old woman's back and nodded. She's the old woman we met during the spring outing in the mountain village. I see. Then we should go over and say hello to her and thank her for taking care of you. Hubby, what do you think? Bailey Han had no objections. Grandma. Xiao Yi ran in front and greeted the old woman affectionately. Xiao Yi, you're here too. The old woman pretended to have just seen her. Hello, Auntie. It was Xia Dong who spoke. Hearing Xia Dong's familiar voice, the old woman suddenly froze. She lowered her head and did not dare to look back at her. Seeing that the old woman did not respond, Xia Dong walked in front of her and said politely, Auntie, I heard from the children that you took care of them during their spring outing. I thank you on behalf of the children. The old woman still lowered her head. Her right hand gripped the walking stick tightly as she said in a hoarse voice, "It's okay. I like the three children very much." Bailey Han sized up the old woman. She was neatly dressed and had white hair. Her right leg was not agile and she was holding a walking stick in her hand. Perhaps it was because of the scar on her face, she kept her head down and was unwilling to look up at them. He did not take it to heart and smiled. "Auntie, it's not easy to get a taxi on this road. If you don't mind, I can give you a ride." The old woman shook her head. "It's okay. There's no need to trouble you. I can go back by myself." Xiao Guai blinked his big eyes and said softly, "Grandma, there's still a long way to go from here. Why don't you take our car?" Xia Dong said, "Yes, Auntie. It's not safe for you to take a car alone. Let us take you to the bus station." The old woman lowered her head and was silent for a moment. Finally, she said in a hoarse voice, "Okay then. Sorry to trouble you." Xia Dong smiled. "It's no trouble. Xiao Yi, help Grandma. We're leaving." Bailey Han realized that the two children were really close to the old woman, especially Xiao Guai. She walked on the left side of the old woman with a bright smile on her little face. She would say something that he did not understand from time to time. It sounded like a story that an old person would tell a child. He guessed that the old woman might have told it to her in the past. The old woman also liked Xiao Guai very much. She would stroke her little head from time to time and laugh softly. The old woman and the young girl would laugh together like a pair of grandmother and granddaughter. The group of people walked on the shaded road and headed out of the cemetery. A man walked towards them. His hair was white and the corners of his eyes were full of wrinkles. He was holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums in his hands. It was Xia Jinsheng. Xia Dong stopped in her tracks. Bailey Han's hand on her waist tightened. It was obvious that he was trying to comfort her. Xia Jinsheng also stopped in his tracks. He looked a little uncomfortable. His right hand clutched his chrysanthemum tightly. Xia, Han, you're here too." Bailey Han's lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Guai's exclamation came from behind. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Then came Xiao Yi's anxious voice. "Grandma's asthma is acting up. Xiao Guai, can you check if Grandma's spray is in that pocket?" Bailey Han and Xia Dong quickly turned around to help. Bailey Han took the spray from Xiao Guai and sprayed it in front of the old woman's nose. Her rapid breathing gradually weakened and her twitching body gradually stabilized. Even so, she still lowered her head and was unwilling to raise it. Xia Dong held her arm and said worriedly, "Auntie, why don't you sit down and rest for a while?" She calmed her breathing and said slowly, "I'm fine. I'm fine now." Xia Jinsheng looked at them in a daze. He clearly didn't understand what was going on with this team. After Bailey Han confirmed that the old madam had recovered, he patted Xiao Yi's little head and said, "Xiao Yi, Xiao Guai, why aren't you greeting him? Hurry up and greet Grandpa." The two children's first reaction was to look at Xia Dong's expression. They knew that their mommy didn't like their grandpa. Xia Dong's expression was indifferent and didn't show any displeasure. Thus, the two children were relieved. They smiled and said, "Hello, Grandpa." Xia Jinsheng was so excited that he almost cried. He said repeatedly, "Hello, hello." Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Xia Dong suddenly turned to look at him and said seriously, "Honey, that auntie, she lived 50 or 60 kilometers away from a city. Why did she come here to visit the grave?" Bailey Han raised his eyebrows. "Maybe the one in the grave is her friend." "Well, let's assume that what you said is right. I found that the apple plate in front of the grave was overturned, and the apples rolled on the ground. If that's the grave of the auntie's friend, why did she let those apples roll on the ground and not pick them up? Maybe it happened so suddenly that she forgot. Honey, aren't you thinking too much?" Bailey Han thought that the old woman was a very ordinary old woman, and there was nothing special about her. Maybe. Xiaodong frowned. The reason why I think she's strange is that when I was delivering the fruits to the car, I accidentally saw her face. Although it was full of wrinkles and scars, and it was almost impossible to see her original face, I felt that there was something familiar between her eyebrows. Hearing her words, Bailey Han also had some ideas. She kept her head down all the way, as if she didn't want us to see her face. Xiaodong suddenly had an idea. Honey, do you think the old auntie is someone I used to know? Bailey Han smiled. Honey, don't worry too much. If fate wills it, we'll meet her again. You can ask her then. Yes, you're right. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Xiaodong had almost forgotten about this matter, but something suddenly happened that made her notice the strangeness of the old woman again. On this day, she picked up Xiao Yi and her siblings from school and parked the car not far from the school gate. Every time she waited for the children at this place, they already knew the exact location, so she wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. She sat in the car and waited for the children. She inadvertently looked up and saw an old figure standing across the street. She took a closer look and saw that it was the old woman. Just as she was surprised, the school gate opened, and a group of children poured out one after another. The old woman hurriedly hid her body behind a pillar and poked her head out slightly. When she saw Xiao Yi and her siblings appear at the school gate, the corners of her lips curled up, and her eyes filled with joy. The children chattered as they walked towards Xiaodong's BMW. Xiaodong opened the car door for them and welcomed them into the car. She gave them a few instructions, then got out of the car and ran across the road. The old woman's gaze followed the children, so when she saw Xiaodong get out of the car, she quickly shrank back and leaned her back against the pillar. She wanted to wait for them to leave before coming out. She didn't expect Xiaodong's voice to suddenly sound in her ears. Auntie. The old woman turned her head stiffly and arched her back to hide her face. Auntie, why are you here? Xiaodong's heart was full of questions. The old woman lowered her head even more and whispered, I was passing by and just wanted to take a look. Auntie, may I ask if we know each other before? The old woman's tone was a little flustered. No, we don't know each other. But I think you look a little familiar. The old woman said without hesitation, you must be mistaken. Xiaodong hesitated for a moment, then suddenly reached out to hold the old woman's shoulders, trying to make her look up to her. However, the old woman was very stubborn and refused to look up. Auntie, I want to see your face. No, my face is too scary. It's better not to scare you. Madam, I should go. Please let go of me. Xiaodong had no choice but to let go of her. Auntie, where are you going? I'll send you. No need, the old woman didn't want to stay a moment longer. She leaned on her walking stick and walked quickly to the intersection, but her legs were inconvenient and she almost tripped several times. Her back view looked flustered and disheveled. Xiaodong felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. She bit her lip and ran to the old woman's side. Without any explanation, she held her arm. Auntie, let me send you. My car is parked over there. No, it's really not necessary. The old woman struggled a few times, but Xiaodong held her arm tightly and almost dragged her to the BMW. She had no choice but to give up struggling. At an angle that Xiaodong couldn't see, the old woman's eyes were filled with tears. Xiaodong helped the old woman into the car. The three children were a little surprised. Xiao Guai cried out in surprise, Grandma, are you here to visit us again? Again? This word was profound and thought-provoking. The old woman rubbed her hands awkwardly and explained to Xiaodong, a few days ago, I sent strawberries to the city and came to visit the three children. I see. Thank you for your concern, Auntie. Xiaodong smiled and nodded. It seemed that she had specially come to visit the children today and wasn't just looking around, as she had said earlier. Why did the old woman like the three children so much? Xiaodong was getting more and more curious. Through the rearview mirror, Xiaodong saw the old woman affectionately stroking Xiao Guai's hair and telling a story to the children in a low voice. She coughed and asked, Auntie, where are you going? Or should I send you directly to the station? The old woman paused and said, "Send me to the station." "Sorry to trouble you." Xia Dong sent her to the bus and watched the bus leave the station. Then, she took the children home. On the way, she asked, "Why didn't you tell me that Grandma came to visit you a few days ago?" The three children looked at each other. Finally, Xiao Bao raised his arm and answered, reporting to Mom, "Grandma told us not to tell the adults. She also said that she didn't mean any harm. She was worried that you would be unhappy if you found out, so she didn't allow her to visit us." Xia Dong was speechless. She stared at the three innocent and cute little faces in the mirror. "Do you think your daddy and I are unreasonable people?" The three of them shook their heads in unison and said sweetly, "No, then why did you hide it from me?" Xiao Guai pouted pitifully. "Grandma asked us for a long time, so we agreed." Xiao Yi asked seriously, "Mommy, are you angry now?" Xia Dong felt defeated. "Forget it, I'm not angry." Xia Dong had an idea. She wanted to investigate the old woman's identity. Although she could tell that the old woman didn't mean any harm, she felt that the old woman was hiding something from her. That night, she went to Xiao Bao's place to ask about the old woman's address. Xiao Bao drew a simple map for her and said, "Mom, are you really going to Grandma's house?" "Yes, I feel that Grandma is hiding something from us. I want to find out." "Okay then. Mom, if you're lost, you can ask anyone about Fu Qinghai's house. You'll find it." "Fu Qinghai?" "Yes, that's Grandma's husband's name." "Oh, by the way, I haven't asked. What's Grandma's name?" Xiao Bao scratched his head in frustration. "I don't know either." As a junior, who would ask an elder's name in front of them? That would be rude. Xia Dong patted his shoulder in amusement. "It's okay. When I get there, I'll ask anyone and I'll find out." Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 340. Xia Dong reported her plan to Bai Han. Before Bai Han approved it, he made a request. He wanted to send her bodyguard, Ling Shui, to go with her. "Hubby, I'm not going into a tiger's den. Isn't it a little too much to bring a bodyguard?" Xia Dong was speechless. Bai Han pretended to be serious. "It's not an exaggeration at all. As long as you're more than 10 kilometers away from me, you have to bring a bodyguard." Xia Dong was completely in awe of him and bared her teeth like a wild kitten. "President Bailey, it's safer if you just put a metal chain around my neck." He stroked his chin in a serious manner. "Wifey, your suggestion is worth considering." She pounced on him and rubbed his cheek. "You actually dare to consider it? I'll prepare handcuffs and handcuff you first." He caught her mischievous little paw and held it tightly in his palm. His sexy lips curved into a mischievous smile. "Handcuffs, candles, a whip. Wifey, I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. But since you like it, I'll play with you. Let's try it tonight, okay?" She would never be his match in terms of shamelessness. He suddenly turned over and pinned her under his body. His deep eyes were filled with tenderness as he supported himself with his arms beside her body. His scorching gaze almost burned her to ashes. Her back was pressed tightly against the desk and her fingers were gripping the edge of the desk uneasily. "Hubby, this is the office," she mumbled. Her seductive lips opened and closed and his eyes were about to burst into flames. However, he still had a faint smile on his face. "So?" His hand had already reached under her shirt and was quietly invading her territory. She couldn't help but tremble. Her fingers clasped his arm tightly and she muttered, "You're a disgrace to the gentleman." A low and magnetic laughter came from the depths of his chest. He suddenly carried her up and walked quickly to the lounge. "I won't anymore." An hour later, she was blushing and hiding under the blanket. She was curled up like a caterpillar and refused to come out. She had only come to the company to discuss some matters with him during his lunch break, but she was abducted to the bed by him. Her willpower was too weak. Bailey Han stood by the bed, neatly dressed. There was a relaxed smile on his handsome face, and his eyebrows were raised. That was the unique high-spirited feeling that came after a satiated meal. He bent down and hugged the bulging blanket in his arms. He chuckled softly. Tired? She arched her body like a little bug and accurately found the position of his chest. She leaned her little head against it and muttered in a muffled voice, "How am I going to get out later?" When she came to find him, she was wearing one set of clothes. The two of them stayed in the office for more than an hour, and when she left, she changed into another set of clothes. Even a fool could guess what they did. "Come out, don't be bored." Bailey Han pulled the blanket down from her head. Her cheeks were flushed, and she still looked charming. Her eyes were watery and lively. He rubbed her soft hair affectionately. "Just walk out like this. No one will dare to laugh at you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "They just won't laugh in front of me." She believed that such a good source of gossip would be unforgivable if she didn't spread it everywhere. "Don't mind what others think. As long as we live comfortably, it's fine." Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her forehead. He comforted her gently. "If you don't want to go out alone, I'll accompany you downstairs." She quickly shook her head. "That will only make things worse. I'll face it alone." She pushed his chest. "Don't you still have a meeting? Hurry up and go." He looked up at her. His eyes were filled with tenderness. The corners of his lips curled up. "Are you sure you'll be fine by yourself?" Hearing him say that, she felt a little embarrassed. "It's fine. I was just casually complaining. Hurry up and go do your work. Don't worry about me." He caressed her face gently. "Silly girl, you don't have to be so righteous in front of me. You don't have to pretend to be relaxed. Honey, sometimes you're so sensible that it makes my heart ache." Actually, he had wanted to say this to her for a long time. He liked to see her throw a tantrum in front of him. He didn't like it when she was willing to be wronged for his sake. Xia Dong leaned her head on his chest and wrapped her arms around his waist. She felt as if a hot spring had flowed through her heart. It was warm and comfortable. She knew a long time ago that she hadn't married the wrong person. She was glad that he had forcefully tied her to his side. She was also glad that she had made the decision to open her heart to him. Otherwise, she would have missed the love of her life. In the end, Bailey Han still wrapped an arm around her waist and sent her downstairs under the watchful gazes of the employees who were pretending to be busy but were actually gossiping. Xiushui Village. The village was like its name. Clear water surrounded the valley and spring covered the mountains. It was a beautiful sight. Xia Dong stepped on the green grass and walked between the fields. She held a simple map drawn by Xiao Bao in her hand as she looked for Fu Qinghai's house. Leng Shui followed behind her at a distance. After all, it was the first time that Xia Dong had come to this unfamiliar place. Eventually, she got lost. By the field, a 7 or 8-year-old child was leading an old cow. The old cow was eating grass leisurely with its head buried in the ground. The child looked at them curiously. Xia Dong smiled in a friendly manner. "Little kid, do you know where Fu Qinghai lives?" The child nodded shyly and pointed at the hill. "Go over this hill and turn right. You'll see a brick house. That's Grandpa Fu's house." "Little kid, do you know the name of Grandpa Fu's wife?" The child shook his head. "I don't know, but we all call her Grandma Xia." Her surname was Xia. Was it a coincidence? Xia Dong had an idea. She took out a handful of candies from her pocket and stuffed them into his hand. "Thank you, little kid." The child smiled embarrassedly. "You're welcome, Auntie. Thank you for the candies." Xia Dong smiled and stroked his head. She walked in the direction he pointed. After climbing over the hillside, what came into view was a lush green vegetable field. A few peasant women were picking vegetables in the field, chatting and laughing about family matters. Xia Dong did not forget the purpose of her visit. She walked to the field and smiled at them. Big sister, sorry to disturb you. May I ask if Fu Qinghai lives here? The women looked up at her at the same time. One of them pointed at a house in the distance and smiled honestly. Yes, it's over there. Okay, thank you. Xia Dong followed her gaze and looked at the house. She smiled and said, Big sister, may I ask what the name of Fu Qinghai's wife is? The women exchanged glances with each other and began to discuss among themselves. Finally, someone said, we only know that her surname is Xia, and we've always called her Big Sister Xia. We really don't know her full name. Xia Dong found it unbelievable. How could someone live here alone for so many years and not know her full name? Another woman added, Fu Qinghai's family didn't live here originally. They moved here more than 10 years ago. Actually, we don't know much about their family. Xia Dong nodded. Big sister, do you know if they have any relatives? The big sister looked at her in confusion. Who are you? Why do you keep asking about their family? Xia Dong smiled. It's like this. Our children came here for a spring outing more than a month ago. Auntie Xia took special care of the children, so I came here to thank her. The big sister was relieved. She smiled and said, I see. The Fu family doesn't seem to have any relatives. Other than the neighbors, they rarely interact with others. Someone said, they have a son, but he's a good-for-nothing. Hey, Auntie Wang, don't tell anyone about those things. I'm just saying it casually. Xia Dong didn't get much information from them. It seemed that Fu Qinghai's family was quite mysterious. In front of her was a one-story red brick courtyard. The courtyard door was closed. Xia Dong raised her hand and knocked on the door. Is anyone home? She called a few times, but no one answered. She only heard the sound of dogs barking in the courtyard. It was morning now, so they might be working in the fields. Xia Dong thought of the strawberry garden that Xiao Bao mentioned. She asked a few people on the way and successfully found the Fu family's strawberry garden. Outside the greenhouse, an old couple was busy packing strawberries. The old woman sat on a low chair and packed the strawberries while Fu Qinghai bent over to carry them. Xia Dong went forward. Uncle, Auntie, sorry to disturb you. The old woman acted as if she didn't hear her and continued with what she was doing. Fu Qinghai put down the box in his hands and turned around. He was slightly startled when he saw a young and beautiful woman standing in front of him. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and his face turned pale. Xia Dong was also looking at Fu Qinghai. Although his face was full of wrinkles, she could vaguely see that he looked like a young man. Just like the old woman, he gave her a very familiar feeling. Where had she seen him before? Fu Qinghai forced himself to return to normal and coughed. Who are you looking for? Xia Dong put the 2 gift boxes on the ground and said with a smile, Uncle, I'm Xiao Yi and her sibling's mother. You and Auntie took care of the children last month, so I'm here to thank you. Fu Qinghai rubbed his hands uncomfortably. He glanced at the old woman and said, You're too polite. My wife doesn't like strangers, so don't mind her. Let's go home and have a cup of tea. Stay for lunch. Xia Dong came to find out more about the situation, so she didn't refuse. She smiled and said, Uncle, let's finish this first. I'll help you. No need, no need. I'm not in a hurry anyway. Wife, hurry up and accompany the guests home. I'm going to town to buy some groceries. Uncle, a simple meal is fine. Xia Dong hurriedly stopped Fu Qinghai. If you're so polite, I'll be too embarrassed to stay and trouble you. Fu Qinghai smiled honestly. Daughter, you don't know, we don't have any relatives. It's rare to have guests, so we're happy. It's only 100 meters from town, so it's very convenient. You and my wife go home first. I'll be back soon. Daughter, come with us. The last sentence he said was referring to Leng Shui, who was not far from Xia Dong. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 341. Xiaodong hurriedly said, "This is my chauffeur, uncle. Sorry for the trouble. Don't mention it. Hurry, let's go home." Although Fu Qinghai was old, his legs were very agile. He walked briskly towards the town. The old woman put down her work and stood up. She slowly looked up at Xiaodong. Her gaze was a little complicated, and there was an inexplicable sadness in it. She sighed softly. "Let's go home." The courtyard was not big, but it was very clean. There was an osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The light yellow petals dotted the green leaves like stars, and the air was filled with a fragrant scent. The tree was as thick as a bowl and looked like it had been planted for at least 10 years. Xiaodong could not help but be in a daze. She remembered that there was such a thick tree in the courtyard where she lived when she was young. Every time the osmanthus flowers bloomed, her mother would make osmanthus wine balls for her. She would sit under the osmanthus tree and feed her spoonful by spoonful. Unknowingly, the corners of her eyes were a little wet. The osmanthus flowers were still there, but the warm embrace that hugged her was no longer there. The old woman leaned against the door and looked at Xiaodong standing in front of the osmanthus tree in a daze. A flash of pain quickly flashed across her cloudy eyes. She quickly lowered her head and walked into the room. A few minutes later, the old woman walked out with a small coffee table. Xiaodong saw this and quickly went forward to help her. The old woman pointed at the osmanthus tree. "Put it under the tree. The scenery outside is good." "Okay." Xiaodong placed the coffee table under the osmanthus tree and helped to bring a small chair over. The old woman went into the kitchen and made a pot of osmanthus tea. The yellow tea slowly poured into a transparent glass, and the aroma filled the air. The three of them sat around the coffee table. Silence. Xiaodong looked up at the osmanthus tree and smiled. "Auntie, you like osmanthus trees too?" The old woman's tone was indifferent. "Yes, my child likes osmanthus." When she was young, every time the osmanthus flowers bloomed, she liked to ask me to make osmanthus wine balls for her. Xiaodong's smile widened, and her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. "When I was young, I also liked to pester my mother to make osmanthus wine balls." The old woman smiled and said gently, "Your mother must be very happy to have such an outstanding daughter like you." Xiaodong's vision was blurred by tears. She couldn't even see the figure in front of her clearly. She choked slightly and said, "My mother has passed away. She didn't see me grow up, let alone enjoy a day of happiness." The old woman lowered her eyes and picked up the teacup to hide the sadness in her eyes, but she couldn't hide her slightly trembling fingers. "Wife, I'm back." An old voice broke the silence in the courtyard. Fu Qinghai pushed open the courtyard door and entered. He was carrying bags of vegetables with a simple smile on his face. Xiaodong raised her head and felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. She couldn't help but frown and ponder. Fu Qinghai quickened his pace and walked towards them. He said cheerfully, "Sit down, I'll go cook." The old woman stood up. "I'll go. You stay here and chat with the guests for a while." Fu Qinghai touched his head honestly and the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. He smiled and said, "That's true. My cooking isn't as good as yours. You can go in first. Call me if you need my help." A light suddenly flashed through Xiaodong's mind. She suddenly widened her eyes and stared at Fu Qinghai. Her voice trembled. "Uncle Fu, is that you? Uncle Fu?" Fu Qinghai and the old woman froze at the same time. Xiaodong suddenly stood up and grabbed Fu Qinghai's hands. "Uncle Fu, I'm Xia." "Xiaodong, do you still remember me?" Fu Qinghai's face suddenly turned pale. He didn't know what to do and pushed Xiaodong's hands away. This, I don't know what you're talking about," Xiaodong said excitedly. "Uncle Fu, I remember you. You must be Uncle Fu. We used to live in the same courtyard. You used to help my mother set up the stall. My mother's name is Xia Ling. Do you remember?" Fu Qinghai stood there dumbfounded. His lips moved but he didn't say a word for a long time. Uncle Fu, what's wrong? Xia Dong was certain that he was Fu Dahai from 20 years ago. Although he looked old now, there was still a shadow of the past in his eyes and his actions were exactly the same as in the past. Fu Qinghai turned his head stiffly and glanced at the old woman who was also stunned. He sighed deeply in his heart and forced a smile on his face. He pretended to be surprised and said, Xia, so it's you. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. I didn't recognize you. Xia Dong laughed. Uncle Fu, I didn't expect you to change your name. Long time no see. How have you been? Good, I've been good. Fu Qinghai hurriedly answered and then gave the old woman a look. Wife, hurry up and get busy in the kitchen. It's getting late. Xia Dong quickly said, Auntie, let me help you. Fu Qinghai stopped her. No, just let your auntie do it. You are a guest today, sit down and chat with me. The old woman picked up the bag of vegetables and walked silently to the kitchen. Xia Dong poured a cup of tea for Fu Qinghai and said, Uncle Fu, Auntie looks very familiar. Did she used to live in our alley? Fu Qinghai's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He smiled uncomfortably. No, I met her after I moved away. Xia Dong asked, by the way, I haven't asked you why you moved away from the courtyard back then. Weren't you living well there? Fu Qinghai looked a bit embarrassed and stammered, Back then, I was very nice to you and your mother. A lot of people gossiped, so I moved away. Back then, Xia Ling was abandoned by Xia Zhensheng. She took her daughter with her and painstakingly set up a food stall. Fu Qinghai pitied the mother and daughter and came to help almost every day. In the end, Xia Ling rented a shop and opened a small restaurant. He simply closed the shop and went to the restaurant to help her. At that time, they worked under the same roof and lived in the same courtyard. It did attract a lot of criticism. Even the young Xia Dong thought that he would become her stepfather. But at that time, he suddenly moved away from the courtyard. Not long after, Xia Ling's restaurant was smashed. Not long after, she set a fire and burned herself to death in her room. From then on, Xia Dong had never seen Fu Qinghai again. She did not expect to see him today. She had mixed feelings. She was happy and sad because when she saw Uncle Fu, she could not help but think of her mother. Fu Qinghai coughed and interrupted Xia Dong's memories. Xia, how have you been all these years? Xia Dong smiled. Pretty good. I'm a mother of 4 now. You've already met Xiao Yi and her siblings. I also have a daughter who's only a few months old. Fu Qinghai nodded with relief and asked, Does your husband treat you well? Xia Dong's smile widened. Pretty good. Fu Qinghai said, Good. He was very emotional. Time flies. Back then, you were only this tall. He gestured in the air. Now, you have children. Sigh, we're getting old. Xia Dong was also emotional and full of questions. Uncle Fu, why did you move here? Fu Qinghai was stunned and said slowly, Back then, your mother passed away. I didn't have a job in the city, so I moved to the countryside to farm and raise chickens. It's not bad to live a peaceful life like this. The two of them chatted for more than half an hour before the old woman called Fu Qinghai's name from the kitchen. Fu Qinghai smiled. Your aunt is done cooking. You can cook first. I'll help set the table. During dinner, Fu Qinghai enthusiastically asked her and Leng Shui to eat more. He even scooped a bowl of hot chicken soup for them. The chicken soup was delicious. After swallowing it, there was a sweet taste left in the mouth. If one did not pay attention, they would not notice it at all. Xia Dong's expression changed. When she was a child, her mother always liked to add some wolfberries and dates to make chicken soup. The taste was exactly the same as this chicken soup. Even though she had not drunk it for many years, she still remembered this familiar taste. Her fingers trembled and the spoon in her hand fell into the bowl. Her heart almost stopped beating. She stared at the old woman's face without blinking. Although she had aged a lot and there were still scars on her face, her eyebrows were somewhat similar to the young Xiaoling. She widened her eyes in disbelief and opened her mouth slightly. She wanted to say something, but her throat seemed to be blocked by cotton and she could not say anything. Xia, what's wrong? Fu Qinghai asked worriedly when he saw her pale face and strange expression. The old woman's eyes were also filled with worry. Xia Dong's eyelashes fluttered, and tears quickly gathered in her eyes. A teardrop rolled down from her eye and fell into the bowl of chicken soup. She opened her mouth and cried out in a heart-wrenching voice, "Mom!" The old woman's body suddenly froze and the chopsticks in her hand fell to the ground. Xia Dong threw herself at her and hugged her tightly. She burst into tears. "Mom, you're still alive, aren't you?" The old woman let her hug her and slowly closed her eyes. Her voice was hoarse. "I'm not your mom. You've got the wrong person." "No, I didn't recognize the wrong person. You're my mother. Only my mother knows that I like osmanthus wine and meatballs. Only my mother puts wolfberries and jujubes in her chicken soup. Mom, don't hide it from me anymore. I'm your daughter. How could you hide it from me?" Xia Dong cried so hard that it was as if she wanted to cry out all the grievances she had suffered over the years. 2 streaks of tears flowed from the old woman's tightly shut eyes. She shook her head and denied it. "I'm not. Your mom is already dead." Xia Dong held her shoulders and stared at her with teary eyes. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "We couldn't find your body in the fire that year. Don't lie to me anymore." "Why? Why won't you admit it? Mom, do you know how sad I was? Why did you abandon me?" Beauty novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 342. You've got the wrong person. I'm not, the old woman shook her head as tears streamed down her face. She shut her eyes tightly and didn't dare to look at her. "Mom, open your eyes and look at me. I'm your Xia. How could you be so heartless as to leave me all alone? Do you know how I've been through all these years? I've always felt guilty. I feel like I've been a burden to you and made your life so difficult. That's why you couldn't take it and wanted to commit suicide. Mom, look at me. Mom." Xia Dong shook her shoulders as tears streamed down her face. The old woman clenched her fists tightly and gritted her teeth, refusing to let go. Fu Qinghai was also in tears. He wiped the tears off his face and said, "Wife, don't hide it from your child anymore. Acknowledge your child." Xia Dong's expression was almost hysterical. She shook Xia Ling's shoulders forcefully. "Mom, did you hear that? Uncle Fu has already acknowledged your identity. Don't hide it from me anymore." Xia Ling slowly opened her eyes. Seeing her daughter's heartbroken face, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She hugged her tightly in her arms and cried bitterly. For a moment, there was only the sound of crying in the room. After a long time, Xia Dong wiped Xia Ling's tears with a tissue. She said in a choked voice, "Mom, I'm so happy that you're still alive. Mom, what difficulties are you facing? Why don't you want to acknowledge me?" Xia Ling sighed bitterly. Xia, I've already become like this. I just don't want to be a burden to you. I'm content to know that you're doing well. Mom, you're so silly. You left me so early. This has always been a regret in my heart. No matter how well I live, it can't make up for this regret." As Xia Dong spoke, tears streamed down her face again. "Mom, why did you commit suicide back then? Was it really because of me?" "Silly girl, how could it be because of you?" Xia Ling caressed her daughter's face lovingly and said in a choked voice, "For you, no matter how hard and tiring it was, I would have persevered. I actually didn't understand what was going on with the fire. That day, when you went to collect your acceptance letter, I suddenly felt a little dizzy at home. I was about to sleep for a while. I didn't expect that there would be a fire. If Uncle Fu hadn't arrived at that time, I would have been dead, Mom. Xia Dong hugged her tightly with lingering fear. Fu Qinghai said, that day, I knew that you received your acceptance letter and believed that you would do well in the exam, so I bought some groceries and went to your house to celebrate with your mother. I didn't expect to see a sea of fire when I entered the house. The quilt was on fire, and your mother was still lying on the bed, unconscious. I quickly pulled her out of the bed and carried her out the back door. He paused and continued, later, I sent your mother to the hospital. When I returned to the Sihiyuan, the firemen had already put out the fire. Only ruins were left. I looked for you for a long time, but I couldn't find you. So I went back to the hospital to take care of your mother. When I heard that your mother had committed suicide by setting the fire, I realized that something was wrong. I wanted to clarify the rumors, but your mother stopped me. Xia Ling sighed and added, at that time, my face was burned and my legs were crippled. Because I inhaled too much carbon dioxide and dust, it caused a serious lung infection. I thought I wouldn't live for more than a few days, and that I would die sooner or later. It was better for you to accept the reality of my death as soon as possible. Xia, don't blame me. I just didn't want to implicate you. How could a teenage girl take care of a seriously injured mother? Xia Ling hid it from Xia Dong because she didn't want to implicate her daughter. But she didn't expect that Fu Qinghai would stay by her side and spend all his money to treat her illness. In the end, she was saved. Fu Qinghai said, your mother was treated in the hospital for a long time. She kept an eye on your situation. When she heard that you were sent to the orphanage, she was so worried that she couldn't sleep. Later, she heard that your aunt brought you back to her house. She was relieved. Your mother's illness took a full 2 years of treatment before she got better. At that time, we were penniless and had a huge debt. I had no choice but to move to the countryside with your mother. We contracted a piece of land to farm and plant fruit trees. It took us 3 years to pay off all our debts. Xia Dong was grateful and sad. With tears in her eyes, she bowed to him solemnly. Uncle Fu, you took care of my mother all these years. You are my father from now on. I will be filial to you and my mother. Xia, what are you doing? Get up. Fu Qinghai hurriedly helped her up. We're family. Don't be so distant. Your mother and I are happy as long as you're doing well. Xia Dong was so touched that tears fell from her eyes. She said sincerely, Dad. Okay. Dad is very happy. I haven't been so happy in a long time. Fu Qinghai was so excited that tears filled his eyes. They were busy catching up and the food had already turned cold. Leng Shui quietly brought the food to the kitchen. After heating it, she brought it out again. The three of them had calmed down a lot. Fu Qinghai quickly helped to bring the food and said apologetically, Miss Leng, I'm so sorry to ask you to do these things. Leng Shui, who had always been cold, curled her lips miraculously. It's okay. Uncle, Auntie, Madam, let's eat. Fu Qinghai smiled. Okay, let's eat. Wife, since we are so happy today, why don't you let Xia have a few drinks with me? Xia Ling said reproachfully, if you want to drink, drink by yourself. Xia can't drink. Her cheeks turn red even when she eats wine balls, not to mention alcohol. Fu Qinghai laughed heartily. That's true. Then I'll drink by myself. Miss Leng, do you drink? Leng Shui said politely, Uncle, I can't drink. I have to drive later. Fu Qinghai patted his head. Look at my memory. I almost forgot. When it was almost dusk, Xia Dong reluctantly said goodbye to Xia Ling and her husband. The two of them sent her to town. Xia Ling held her hands. Xia Xia, live well with Bailey Han. Don't worry about us. Mom, Dad, take care. I'll come back to visit you soon. Xia Dong hugged Xia Ling. The car had already driven far away, but Xia Dong could still see the two of them standing by a tree outside the village, staring at her. She couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. Halfway through the journey, Bailey Han called. His voice was full of concern. Honey, why aren't you home yet? Did something happen? Xia Dong smiled and said softly, I'm already on the way. I'll be home in about half an hour. Honey, I have good news to tell you. Bailey Han stood by the balcony with his phone in his hand. He looked at the dark sky and listened to her slowly tell him what had happened. The expression in his deep eyes changed many times. There was shock and heartache, but in the end, it all turned into thick warmth. He couldn't wait to appear in front of her and hold her in his arms. His lips curved into a warm smile. Honey, next time, I'll go with you to visit mother-in-law and father-in-law. Okay. Xia Dong's eyes were already wet with tears when he said this simple word. The BMW drove to the entrance of the manor. Under the dim sky, a tall and handsome figure stood at the iron gate. He was wearing white casual clothes and had his hands in his trouser pockets as he waited leisurely. Xia Dong could not help but smile when she saw Bailey Han. She opened the car door and walked over to him. She looked up at him. Why are you standing here? I'm here to pick up my wife. Beautiful madam, have you seen my wife? Bailey Han pulled her into his arms with a smile and lowered his head to kiss her forehead. Xia Dong smiled. Be careful not to let your wife see you. She will be jealous. Really? So my wife is jealous of herself. Bailey Han held her in his arms and walked towards the villa. His mellow and sexy voice was full of laughter. So what if I am? She mischievously pinched his waist. This caused him to laugh in a low voice. His magnetic laughter echoed in the empty path. After dinner, the family was chatting in the living room. Xia Dong announced her important discovery to the whole family and the living room was filled with sighs. Old Madam was very reasonable and said that she would make some time to visit Xia Ling and her husband in person. Xia Dong knew that Old Madam was old and could not stand the long journey, so she planned to invite her mother and Uncle Fu to the house. When they went to bed that night, Xia Dong leaned against Bailey Han's arms and discussed with him. Honey, my mother and Uncle Fu are old and they live in Xiushui village, so it is not convenient for me to take care of them. I want to bring them to the city, what do you think? Bailey Han rubbed his chin against her silky hair and looked at her dotingly. Okay, my villa has been empty all this time. Please move in with me. It is close to the mansion and it will be convenient for us to take care of them. Xia Dong could not help but laugh. You want them to live in your villa? No, no. He raised his eyebrows. Why not? My parents are both honest people. They will feel uncomfortable if they live in such a luxurious place. I was planning to rent out my previous apartment but I did not have time to deal with it, so it has been empty all this time. Let them move in there. Bailey Han thought for a while. Okay, we will listen to your arrangement. Your previous apartment is close to Aunt's home and they have not seen each other for so many years, so they can get to know each other better. Yes, that is my plan too. I called Aunt on the way home and told her that my mother is still alive. She can't wait to see her. Speaking of this matter, Xia Dong's eyes shone with excitement. She was full of energy, as if she had been injected with chicken blood. The consequence of being so excited was that she could not sleep. Bailey Han bit her earlobe and whispered, Honey, there is a way to cure your insomnia. What? Do/love/do, so erotic. A certain someone had already turned into a wolf and devoured her over and over again. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 343. It was the weekend. Xia Dong and Bailey Han led the children, as well as Xia Yun and her husband, to Shushui village to visit Xia Ling and her husband. When the two old sisters met, they hugged each other and cried. Xia Dong and the others also had red eyes. It was a touching scene. The children called out, "Grandpa and Grandma," in their childish voices. The two elders hugged the children tightly in their arms and couldn't help but cry. After waiting for more than 20 years, the day of family reunion was finally here. Xia Ling was happy and sad at the same time. As she reminisced about the past with her family, she wiped away her tears again and again. Fu Qinghai comforted Xia Ling, "Honey, we're happy today. Let's not talk about those unhappy things." Xia Ling nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, let's not talk about those unhappy things." Xiao Yun, Mingyuan, thank you for taking care of Xia all these years. I want to thank you. Xia Yun held her hand and said, "Sister, we're sisters. We're family." How can you say that? Xia is also Mingyuan's and my daughter. If we don't treat her well, who else should we treat well? Gao Mingyuan smiled and said, "Sis, you don't have to be so polite with us." Xia Ling was so touched that she didn't know what to say. She just held Xia Yun's hand tightly. Nothing needed to be said about their sisterly love. Bailey Han treated Xia Dong's parents as if they were his own. Although it was their first official meeting, they weren't distant at all. He called them Dad and Mom affectionately. From time to time, he would tell some interesting stories, making the elders laugh heartily. For the first time, Xia Dong realized that he was actually quite humorous. The current him was completely different from the cold and emotionless man of the past. At the dining table, Bailey Han poured a glass of wine for Gao Mingyuan and Fu Qinghai. He also poured a glass for Xia Yun and Xia Ling. Then, he stood up with his glass and said seriously, "Dad, Mom, you've worked hard all these years. When Xia and I got married, you weren't able to attend. Today, I toast to you as your son-in-law to thank you for taking care of Xia." His toast was equivalent to a toast to a son-in-law. After drinking it, it meant that the parents acknowledged him as their son-in-law. Fu Qinghai was an honest person and didn't have any ulterior motives. He raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. Xia Ling held her drink with a serious expression. "Han, I once had a failed marriage. I don't want my daughter to follow in my footsteps. Can you promise that you'll treat my daughter well for the rest of your life?" In front of the children, her aunt, and uncle, Xia Dong felt a little uncomfortable and secretly tugged at Xia Ling's clothes. Bailey Han's lips curved into a smile. His deep gaze landed on Xia Dong and he said slowly, "Mom, it's better to do well than to say well. I will use my actions to prove to you that Xia will never regret marrying me. In this lifetime, I, Bailey Han, will never have another woman besides Xia Dong." "Alright, I'm relieved to hear that." Xia Ling nodded her head in satisfaction before downing her drink in one gulp. After dinner, Xia Dong and Xia Yun helped Xia Ling clean up the dishes. Xia Ling smiled and said, "Xiao Yun, you should rest. Let Xia help me clean up." Having received her mother's approval, Xia Dong was overjoyed. She cleaned up the dishes and wiped the table. Xia Ling couldn't help but laugh when she saw how happy she was. Silly girl. She's so happy even when she's working. Xia Dong laughed happily. "Mom, you have no idea. I've dreamed of cooking and washing dishes with you like this for many years." "Really?" Xia Ling smiled and the wrinkles on her face relaxed. Today was the happiest day of her life in more than 20 years. "Of course it's true." Xia Dong finished washing the dishes and wiped her hands. She hugged her mother's arm and leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mom, I still want to eat your osmanthus wine balls. I've been thinking about it for many years." Xia Ling poked her forehead and teased, "I think that's the main point." "Mom, it's good that you know. Don't expose me. You silly girl." Under the sunlight, the figures of the mother and daughter snuggled up to each other were projected on the window glass. It was warm and refreshing. In the courtyard, Bailey Han was sitting around the coffee table with a few elders and chatting. Most of the time, it was Fu Qinghai and Gao Mingyuan who were talking while Xia Yun played with the children. Bailey Han didn't feel bored. Instead, he listened attentively and occasionally interrupted to express his opinion. Fu Qinghai and the others liked such a polite young man like him. Through the window, Xia Ling saw Bailey Han listening with a smile. She patted Xia Dong's arm and laughed softly. Ah Han is such a good child. Mom doesn't have to worry about you anymore. Xia Dong helped her to a chair by the window and smiled. Then why did you make things difficult for him just now? Oh, why? Do you feel bad for him? Xia Ling poked her forehead with her finger. Silly girl, I did it on purpose. I made him promise in front of us to let him know that you still have the support of us elders. If he dares to bully you, we definitely won't let him off. Xia Dong hugged her arm. Mom, he won't. I believe that he will treat me well for the rest of his life. Xia Ling's eyes dimmed and she smiled bitterly. The phrase, the rest of your life, sounds simple, but it's actually very difficult. How many people give up halfway? And how many people forget their vows of eternal love? Xia Dong knew that she was thinking about her marriage with Xia Zhensheng. She hugged her tighter and said gently, Mom, since I've made my choice, I have to believe in him. Xia Ling stroked her hair and the dimness in her eyes faded. She smiled and said gently, my daughter has grown up and is sensible. Xia, you're right. Since you've made your choice, you have to believe in him and live well with Ahan. Xia Dong's eyes were smiling as he replied, yes. The mother and daughter leaned against each other quietly for a while. Then Xia Dong thought of something and said, Mom, do I have a younger brother? Xia Ling sighed. Yes, your Uncle Fu and I have a child called Fu Wei. He's already 16 years old and he's working in the city. She sounded helpless. Xia Dong looked up from her arms. Mom, did something happen to Ah Wei? Xia Ling shook her head and looked troubled. Ah Wei is too disobedient. He doesn't like to study and dropped out of school in junior high. He has a bunch of bad friends and is always causing trouble. Your Uncle Fu and I have a headache because of him. We don't know what to do with him. Fu Wei was their son. When he was young, he was spoiled. Coupled with the bad boys in the village, he learned how to lie from a young age. He skipped classes every day and went to the internet cafe and arcade. The couple did not know about those things and Fu Wei was able to fool them with a few words. It was not until he got into a fight with a classmate and the teacher invited them to the school for a parent-teacher meeting that they realized the seriousness of the matter. However, it was already too late. Fu Wei was given a few serious demerits by the school and if he made another mistake, he would be expelled. The naughty boy was beaten up by Fu Qinghai but he was still disobedient. He hung out with the gangsters outside the school and robbed the rich students in the school. After his deeds were exposed, he was persuaded to leave the school by the teacher and no matter how Fu Qinghai pleaded, it was useless. Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling's hair turned white at that time. Fu Qinghai had planned to transfer Fu Wei to another school, but Fu Wei refused to go to school and ran away from home to work in a city. He came home once every 10 days or half a month and every time he came home, he would ask for money. The couple did not know what to do with him. Xia Dong thought for a while and said, Mom, Wei is still young, he is only 16 years old. I will go back and think of a way with Ahan to persuade him to come back and continue with his studies. Xia Ling sighed helplessly. Now he is a sore point for me and your Uncle Fu. Xia Dong comforted her and said, Mom, there is one more thing I want to discuss with you. What is it? Tell me. Well, you and Uncle Fu are both old and need someone to take care of you. Ahan and I want you to move to the city. I have a 3-bedroom apartment in the city, it is just big enough for you and Wei to live in and it will be convenient for us to take care of you. What do you think? Xia Ling was startled. This is not a good idea, why not? I'm your daughter, so I should take care of you. Mom, my apartment is only 2 kilometers away from Auntie's house. You can get to Auntie's house after taking a few bus stops. It's also convenient for you to visit each other. Just agree, okay? Xia Dong hugged her mother's arm and begged. Xia Ling was actually very happy that her daughter and son-in-law were thinking about the two of them. However, she still had many worries. Xia, will Ahan's family be unhappy that you're helping your family like this? Xia Dong laughed. Then you are worried for nothing. I already discussed it with my family last night and they all agreed. Ahan even said that you and Uncle Fu can move into his villa. Xia Ling said, no way, we are not used to living in a villa. That's what I said too, so Ahan gave up on the idea. Xia Dong laughed happily and swung her arms. Mom, can you talk to Uncle Fu and ask him to move to the city? Okay, I will discuss it with your Uncle Fu. But soon she was worried again. What about our strawberry garden? We still have a lot of harvest every year. Xia Dong suggested. How about we contract it to someone else? I have been doing it for more than 10 years, I really can't bear to do it. Mom, you and Uncle Fu have worked so hard for so many years, it is time for you to enjoy life. Don't think about those things anymore. Xia Ling shook her head. It is not that easy to move to the city. We don't have jobs, how are we going to support ourselves? Which of our daily necessities does not cost money? Xia Dong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Oh, my dear mother, your daughter is rich now and she is enough to support you too. Please, don't worry so much, okay? Xia Ling knocked on her forehead and said impatiently, I know that Ahan is rich, but you can't always help your family. Even if their family doesn't have any opinions, outsiders will. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 344. Mom, it's my own money. When I was in Japan, I saved up a large sum of money. It's enough to support the two of you. Besides, I also have 10% of the shares of Xinghao Group. Every year, the dividends are tens of millions. Xinghao Group? Isn't that Ahan's company? Xia Ling was surprised. Xia Dong nodded. When we got married, Ahan transferred 10% of the shares of the company to me. She wasn't going to tell her mother that Ahan's original words at the time were to give the money to her as pocket money, tens of millions of pocket money. Of course, he also gave her a few extra credit cards for her to use as she pleased. Xia Ling was flabbergasted. Clearly, this matter had exceeded her understanding. So, you don't have to worry about money, just move to the city. Xia Dong said with a smile. Mom, I will take it that you agree. You must try to persuade Uncle Fu. Xia Ling came back to herself and felt that Bai Li Han was a very reliable son-in-law. If a man was willing to give his wife the financial power, it meant that he was not selfish and truly loved this woman. Especially in those rich families, there were some women who married into rich families but their husbands were not willing to transfer their assets to them. Since Shoshui village was far away from the city, Xia Ling had already prepared dinner and asked them to go home after dinner. The two cars drove away and Xia Ling and her husband stood at the entrance of the village, waving their hands. It was not until they could no longer be seen that Xia Dong turned around reluctantly. Bai Li Han smiled and said gently, Have you mentioned to mother-in-law about moving? Yes, I have. Mom agreed. When Dad agrees, we will help them move immediately. Xia Dong could not wait one more day. She really wanted to live closer to them. Bai Li Han smiled lovingly. Okay, we will go to your apartment tomorrow and ask the furniture company to send you any furniture you need. Honey, you are so nice. Xia Dong's eyes sparkled. She lowered her voice to avoid the 3 pairs of ears in the back seat. Bai Li Han pointed at his cheek and cooperated with her by lowering his voice. A reward. Xia Dong whispered, Focus on driving. I'll give it to you when we get home. He chuckled softly. You said it yourself. I want the same reward as last night. Her face heated up. Xiao Bao suddenly coughed loudly with a strange expression on his face. Little Wingzy also coughed and winked at him. Xiao Guai giggled. Daddy, Mommy, we heard it. Xia Dong was embarrassed, but she also found it funny and couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Han sighed helplessly. The three of you need to learn how to play dumb. The three of them shouted in unison, next time, we'll definitely play dumb. That's good. Bailey Han was pleased with their strong learning ability. Xia Dong bit her lip and laughed even louder. The next day, the couple drove to Xia Dong's small apartment with the three little kids. They took inventory of the furniture in the house and made a list of furniture that needed to be added. They also packed the things that the children needed into 2 boxes and stuffed them into the car. In the end, Bailey Han personally drew a simple renovation sketch. He planned to renovate the house and change it into an environment suitable for the elderly. After he finished drawing, he said, I'll get Lu Zihao to contact a trustworthy renovation company to complete the renovation as soon as possible. The children were playing in the living room. Xia Dong took the opportunity to kiss him on the cheek as a reward. She smiled and teased, Honey, I didn't expect you to have such skills. This is nothing. This is my villa. I drew all the decorations and sketches myself. Bailey Han bit her lips and raised his eyebrows proudly with an expression that said, Hurry up and praise me. Xia Dong recalled the first time she moved into his villa 5 years ago. When she saw the black marble living room and the love-struck guest room, she felt emotional. She chuckled and rubbed his cheek. The villa's overall style is low-key, but it's interesting. It's really your taste. Honey, you're amazing. Come, give me another kiss. He shamelessly moved closer to her. She quickly jumped away and ran to the door. She made a face at him. It's broad daylight. Aren't you embarrassed? Bailey Han raised his eyebrows slightly and smirked. He said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, Who was the one crying and begging me to do embarrassing things last night? Xia Dong's face suddenly turned red. She lowered her voice and bared her teeth. I told you to stop. His smile widened. He stretched out his arm and gestured elegantly with his finger. Honey, come here, only a fool would go over. Xia Dong glared at him angrily. Looking at his smirk, he definitely didn't have good intentions. She didn't want to walk right into his trap. She turned and ran. But she was still a step too late. A pair of slender arms passed through her waist and pulled her into a broad chest at lightning speed. With a bang sound, the door was kicked shut by him. He held her in his arms, his slender fingers caressing her lips that she was biting slightly due to her nervousness. His face was extremely close to hers, and his warm breath blew on her cheek. He chuckled softly. Wifey, what should we do? It seems like I can't resist your charm anymore. His gentle words of love made her face even redder. Coupled with the caressing of his fingers on her face, her entire body went limp. Leaning on his chest, she pouted coquettishly while breathing unsteadily. Stop fooling around. The children are still outside. He hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, I know. I just want to satisfy my craving. He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. After their breathing stabilized, the first thing Xia Dong did was look for a mirror. In the mirror, her lips were red and slightly swollen. It was easy to think of something and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. He accepted it and walked out of the room with his arm around her slender waist. Actually, Xia Dong felt guilty and thought too much. The children had long thought that it was normal for Daddy and Mommy to kiss each other. It was their fault for being so mushy. That day, Xia Ling called and said that Fu Qinghai had agreed to move to the city. Xia Dong was very happy. She discussed with Xia Ling and decided to postpone the move to the end of the month because the house had to be renovated. Bailey Han quickly contacted the renovation company. The renovation this time was very simple. It mainly focused on the placement of the interior furniture and the overall comfort level. No paint, paint, or other materials were used because those things would emit substances that were harmful to the human body. It needed to be empty for a period of time before people could move in. That would delay the moving in. 2 days later, Xia Dong bought 2 sets of clothes and some supplements for her parents to visit them. This time, Bailey Han was at work and the children had to go to school. She was the only one there. She wanted to give the 2 elders a surprise, so she didn't tell them in advance. When she walked to the door of the courtyard, she realized that it wasn't locked. Just as she was about to push the door open, she suddenly heard an argument from inside. "Ah, Wei, stop it right now. That passbook contains your mother's and my coffin money. Stupid old man, let go. If I don't return the money to them, they will chop off my hands. Do you understand? Ah, Wei, why did you gamble again? Why are you so disobedient? Get out of my way, stupid old woman." Ah, there was the sound of someone falling to the ground. Xia Dong couldn't hold it in anymore. She was furious. Bang! She kicked the door open and barged in with a livid face. When she saw the scene in front of her, Xia Dong was furious. Her mother was lying on the ground and her father hurriedly went to help her up. Her half-brother, Fu Wei, only cared about the passbook in his hand and didn't care about the lives of the 2 elders. "Mom, how are you? Are you okay?" Xia Dong quickly ran over and put down the things in her hand to help Fu Qinghai help Xia Ling up. Xia Ling was full of bitterness. She turned her head away and wiped her tears. She kept shaking her head. I'm fine. Fu Wei put the passbook in his pants pocket and looked at Xia Dong up and down. "Who are you? You're quite pretty." Xia Dong stood up, her eyes burning with anger. She quickly walked in front of him and raised her hand to slap his roguish face. She gritted her teeth and said, "Open your eyes and take a good look. I'm your sister, Xia Dong." Fu Wei was caught off guard by her slap and was stunned. He quickly reacted and raised his hand angrily to hit back. "Stop!" Fu Qinghai roared. "You bastard, if you really dare to hit her, don't ever come back to this house again." Fu Wei didn't take his father's words seriously. Instead, he was furious and didn't hesitate to slap him. He shouted, "Old man, I'm your biological son. Why are you helping this bastard?" You. Fu Qinghai was so angry that he almost fainted. Xia Ling was even angrier and sadder. She limped towards her son and daughter. "You bastard, stop it right now." But after all, distant water couldn't quench a present thirst. Seeing that Fu Wei's heavy slap was about to land on Xia Dong's face, Xia Ling became even more anxious and staggered over. Fu Qinghai also came over to stop her, but Xia Dong suddenly grabbed Fu Wei's wrist tightly. At first, Fu Wei didn't take her seriously and reached out to hit her with his other hand. In the end, she also grabbed his wrist. His face gradually turned from red to white. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hurry and let go, damn it, this woman looks so thin and weak. How is she so strong?" Xia Dong stared at him coldly. "Apologize to Mom and Dad." Fu Wei's forehead was covered in cold sweat from the pain. He hurriedly said, "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong." Fu Qinghai and Xia Ling were stunned. They didn't expect their daughter to be so powerful. Now can you let go of me, sister?" Fu Wei's wrist hurt so much that he squeezed out an ugly smile. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 345. Xia Dong sneered. "Now you're calling me sister? Didn't you just call me a bastard? Didn't you say it so smoothly? I'm sorry, sister. I was wrong. Please let me go. I'm your brother." Fu Wei said pitifully. Xia Dong looked at her half-brother carefully. He was only 16 years old and had a hint of childishness between his eyebrows. He was quite handsome, but he had a lot of bad habits that needed to be cured. Otherwise, his life would be over. She grabbed his wrists tightly and had no intention of letting go. She stared at him with her sharp eyes and said in a low voice, "How did you owe money? How much do you owe?" Fu Wei's hands were grabbed and were in so much pain that he didn't have the ability to think anymore. He told her all the mistakes he had made. I gambled with someone and lost 100,000. 100,000? This amount of money was not a small sum for the poor Fu Qinghai and his wife. The two of them supported each other and almost fainted. Xia Dong was furious. This brother of hers was really useless. Of all things to learn, he had to learn gambling. She suddenly lifted her leg and kicked his knee. His legs went soft and he fell to his knees with a thud. She pulled his wrist hard and he grimaced in pain. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Sis, please spare me," Xia Dong said angrily. "Kneel in front of Dad and Mom now and reflect." Yes. "Dad, Mom, I was wrong. Hurry up and ask Sister to let go of me. I'm going to die from the pain." Fu Wei started to cry. His eyes were filled with tears and his face was twisted in pain. He looked extremely pathetic. Xia Ling saw her son in such a pitiful state and couldn't bear it. Just as she was about to say something, Fu Qinghai suddenly grabbed her wrist and shouted, "You bastard, your sister is right. You have to reflect today." Xia Ling was shocked and her mind instantly cleared up. She suppressed the pity in her heart. Her son was stubborn and no one could control him. Now that Xia could control him, it was a good thing. She hoped that she could pull him back from the wrong path. Xia Dong flung Fu Wei's wrist away. She didn't care about his crying face and strode to her parents. She brought 2 chairs for them to sit down and whispered in Fu Qinghai's ear, "Dad, if you don't mind, let me handle this." Fu Qinghai couldn't wait for Xia Dong to tame his son. He nodded and deliberately said in a loud voice, Xia, I'll leave that bastard to you. Teach him a lesson. Don't worry about us." "Fu Wei," he cried. "Dad, Mom, Sis, I know I was wrong, but..." "Sister." Xia Dong said coldly, "Wei, how long have you been working?" Fu Wei was stunned. He didn't expect her to suddenly ask such an irrelevant question. Xia Dong said sternly, "I'm asking you, how long have you been working?" 2 years. "How much savings do you have now?" No. Xia Dong's tone turned cold. "You don't have a single cent?" Fu Wei shrunk his neck and shivered. "Yes." He dropped out of school at the age of 14. After that, he ran to the city to work. Regular factories didn't dare to take in child laborers. He finally found a job as a waiter in a small restaurant. However, because the salary was too low and the work was too hard, he ran away after a month. After that, he mingled with a group of hooligans. He collected protection money, fought with people, and did a lot of petty theft. However, because he squandered money whenever he was rich, he didn't save a single cent. Instead, he often asked his parents for money. Especially after he became addicted to gambling, his behavior became worse. If his parents didn't give him any money, he would openly rob them. Worse, he would even use his fists and legs. Xia Dong slammed the coffee table and said angrily, "Fu Wei, you're already 16 years old. You're an adult. You don't do a proper job all day. You only know how to ask your parents for money. Don't you have any sense of shame?" Fu Wei suddenly raised his head and stiffened his neck. "It's their fault that I'm like this today." Good, very good. I only thought that you were young and ignorant. I didn't expect you to add another one. You're an incompetent idiot who only knows how to push the blame to others." Xia Dong was so angry that her whole body trembled. She pointed at his nose and said, "Did your parents force you to drop out of school? Did they force you to fool around with those bastards? Did they force you to gamble and squander money? They are indeed wrong. Their mistake is that they love you too much, spoil you too much, and spoil you too much. Fu Wei's face alternated between red and white. His eyes shot out a venomous light. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let me tell you, don't think that you can control me just because I call you sister. You have no right to control me." Xia Dong snorted coldly. "Since you call me sister, I have the right to discipline you on behalf of your parents. Fu Wei, listen carefully. Don't even think about taking a single cent from your parents. If you have the ability, earn your own money and return it to those people." Fu Wei's face suddenly changed. He lay on the ground and cried bitterly. "Dad, Mom, sister, you have to save me. The people in the casino are used to being vicious. They will really chop off my hands. As long as you're willing to help me this time, I will turn over a new leaf and become a new person." Xia Dong had to admit that this kid's face changed as quickly as flipping through a book. It would be a great loss to the film industry if he didn't go into acting. She knew that he had been on the wrong path for a long time. Even if she talked until her mouth was dry, he wouldn't be able to change in such a short time. She had to come up with a plan to change his bad habits. She frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. Her tone softened slightly as she said slowly, "Ah Wei, go talk to the people in the casino and ask them to give you 3 months. Impossible, they won't even give me 3 days." Fu Wei saw that her tone had relaxed. He crawled to her on his knees and said, "Sister, I beg you, please help me. I know you have money." Xia Dong looked at the fawning expression on his face and felt uncomfortable all over. He glared at him and said, "Stand up and speak properly." "Ah, okay. Thank you, sister." Fu Wei stood up quickly and patted the dust off his knees. He chuckled and said, "Sister, can you lend me 100,000 yuan?" Xia Dong rejected him immediately. "Impossible. You have to earn this money yourself. However, I can introduce you to a job. Your salary will be calculated according to your performance. I guarantee that you can earn 100,000 yuan in 3 months." "Sister, they won't even wait for me for 3 months." Xia Dong glanced at him. "Aren't you very talkative? Talk to them. If they really cut off your hands, you won't be able to give them a single cent. On the contrary, if they are willing to give you 3 months, not only will you return them 100,000 yuan, you will also give them an extra 10,000 yuan interest. Why wouldn't they agree to such a good thing?" Fu Wei was stunned. "An extra 10,000 yuan? Where will the money come from? Earn it yourself. I've already said that your salary will be linked to your efforts. The harder you work, the higher your salary." Fu Wei was very reluctant. "Don't tell me it's construction work. It's hard and tiring. I don't want to do it." Xia Dong sneered. "Look at how weak you are. Can you do it if I ask you to work at a construction site? What kind of work is that? Let's make it clear first. I won't do any work that requires physical strength." Fu Wei had long been trained to be tough. He didn't even blush when he said this. Xia Dong glanced at him and spat out 2 words. "Sales." "What? Sales? I always have to smile and please others. I won't do it." Xia Dong said lightly, "You have no education, no strength, and no skills. If you don't want to do anything, how are you going to make money? Sales is already the easiest job. If it weren't for the fact that you are my brother, I wouldn't even introduce such a good job to you." Fu Wei muttered unhappily, "Then don't introduce the job to me. Just give me the money." Xia Dong's expression changed. "Fu Wei, don't make me angry. If you don't learn how to earn your own living, don't even think about getting a single cent from me and Mom." Okay. I'll do it." Fu Wei was worried that he had angered this god of wealth and really didn't care about him anymore. He said helplessly, "Tell me, where do you work in sales?" Xia Dong gave him an address and said, "Wait for me at this cafe tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon. I'll arrange a job for you then." Also, you have to appease the people in the casino. It's best if you sign an agreement with them that they are not allowed to disturb you or your family for 3 months. When the time is up, you will naturally return the money to them. Understand? Fu Wei nodded carelessly. Yes, I understand. Xia Dong was angry when she saw his attitude. However, Rome wasn't built in a day. She couldn't rush it. She had to train him slowly. Seeing that he couldn't get his parents' money, Fu Wei didn't want to stay at home any longer. He shrugged and said, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Fu Qinghai scolded, it's not easy for your sister to come back. Let's have a good meal together. Fu Wei rolled his eyes and laughed. Sister, it's not that I don't want to eat with you. It's just that I want to talk to the people in the casino early and appease them. Xia Dong could tell that he didn't want to stay at home. She thought for a while and said, okay, go ahead. If you want to sign an agreement, look carefully. Don't be fooled. I know. Goodbye, sister. Goodbye, Dad and Mom. He waved his hand and ran away quickly. Fu Qinghai and his wife sighed deeply as they watched his back disappear into the distance. Xia Dong said, Dad, Mom, I went past you to teach Wei a lesson. I hope you don't mind. Fu Qinghai hurriedly said, Xia, don't say that. I'm more than happy that you can control Wei. There's finally someone who can control him. As long as you can pull him back from the wrong path, you can teach him a lesson however you want. Add Xinwu 799. Chapter 346. Xia Dong smiled and said, Dad, Mom, this is what I'm thinking. Let's let Wei earn his own living and let him realize his shortcomings at work. Then, we'll think of a way to persuade him to go back to school. He's still too young, so it's better for him to study for a few more years. Fu Qinghai nodded repeatedly. We'll listen to you, Xia. Fortunately, you're here. Otherwise, your mom and I wouldn't know what to do. Yes, Xia. Mom is also very grateful to you. Xia Ling couldn't help but wipe her tears as she spoke. Xia Dong sat beside her and hugged her shoulders. She said gently, Mom, don't worry. Wei is my younger brother. I'll definitely think of a way to change his bad habits. Mom, don't be sad, okay? Xia Ling looked at her sensible daughter and was very gratified. She patted the back of her hand hard. Fu Qinghai thought for a moment and said, Xia, you said that you'll arrange a job for Wei. Will this work? Xia Dong smiled. No problem, Dad. Don't worry. When they went to bed that night, Xia Dong told Bailey Han about her battle with Fu Wei. In the end, she sighed. Wei is so young. I didn't expect him to become like this. It looks like it'll take a lot of effort to change him. Bailey Han hugged her in his arms and said, Don't worry. I'm still here. I'll show him how powerful I am as his brother-in-law. Xia Dong's lips curled into a smile. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You're the famous young master of the Dragon Gang. He stroked her hair and smiled. You said that you'll arrange a job for Wei. Don't tell me you want him to enter my company? Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Why? You're not willing? He chuckled softly. Of course not. I'm just worried that if he enters my company, he'll use my name to throw his weight around. Xia Dong frowned. That's right. With his personality, he would really do something like that. Bailey Han reached out to rub the creases between her eyebrows and said gently, Don't worry, I have a way. I have a friend who opened a software development company. They've developed a new hotel management program, and the employees in the marketing department will get a 10% commission if they sell a set of software. As long as Wei is willing to work hard, it won't be hard for him to earn 30,000 a month. She didn't expect that he had already thought of a countermeasure while listening to her story. Xia Dong was extremely touched. She hugged him tightly and rubbed her head against his chest. Hubby, you're the best. My wife's business is also my business. Of course, your husband will go through fire and water without hesitation. Bailey Han was lying flat on his back. He took the opportunity to lift her up and let her lie on top of him. Their bodies fit together without any gap. Xia Dong leaned her head against his chest and listened to his steady heartbeat. She said softly, Hubby, do you think our way can last for 3 months? His left hand rested on her waist and his right hand stroked her back. His eyes were filled with tenderness. I don't know either. I hope he can hold on. If he can't, we'll think of a way to make him hold on. She nodded and said helplessly, Our way's matter has made me reflect on myself. I shouldn't spoil the children too much, lest I spoil them. It looks like I'll have to be stricter in the future. Bailey Han chuckled softly. A loving mother and a strict father. You play the good cop, and I play the bad cop. I promise I won't let them go astray. Okay. She looked up and smiled as she kissed his chin. Honey, the conversation is over. It's time for us to exercise. The corners of his lips curled up. He hugged her and turned around, pressing her under his body. He lowered his head and kissed her lips gently. She reached out her arm and hooked it around his neck as she responded passionately. He bit her lips and whispered, Honey, why are you so passionate tonight? She laughed softly. You don't like it? Then I won't be passionate. His kiss became more intense as he blocked her words with his tongue. He used his actions to tell her that he loved her passion to death. At the cafe, Xia Dong looked at the watch on her wrist. Her right hand stirred her coffee occasionally as her gaze fell on the passers-by outside the window. Half an hour had passed since the agreed time, but Fu Wei still hadn't arrived. Xia Dong didn't want to waste any more time, so she dialed his number and said mildly, Ah Wei, where are you? I've been waiting for you for half an hour. Sorry, sis. There was a traffic jam. I'm in the car. I'll be there soon. Xia Dong's tone didn't fluctuate. How much longer? About 10 minutes. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Fu Wei still hadn't arrived. Xia Dong's heart was already burning with anger. She thought that when he arrived later, she would definitely give him a good scolding. After another 5 minutes, Fu Wei ran in, sweating profusely. He sat down opposite her and said while panting, Sorry, sis. I'm late. Xia Dong had already prepared some words to scold him, but seeing him in such a sorry state, he swallowed them back down. Instead, he pulled out a few napkins and handed them to him. Wipe yourself. Thank you, sis. Fu Wei took the napkins and wiped his face a few times. He grinned at her. Sis, I've already talked to the people at the casino. They'll give me 3 months. Xia Dong was still worried and asked, Did they make things difficult for you? What were the terms that you agreed on? Fu Wei raised his chin proudly. No. According to what we discussed yesterday, I'll give them an extra 10,000 yuan and they'll give me another 3 months. Are there really no other terms? There's really nothing else. Xia Dong was relieved after Fu Wei repeatedly assured her. She took out a business card from her handbag and pushed it in front of him. This is a software development company. Wait for me. The two of them walked out of the department store one after the other and brushed past Xia Jinsheng. Xia Dong looked straight ahead and didn't notice Xia Jinsheng. Xia Jinsheng did notice them, but he was too embarrassed to call out to Xia Dong. At the same time, he was puzzled. Why did the young man behind her call her sis? Xia Dong stopped the BMW outside a hair salon. She looked sideways at Fu Wei. Get out of the car. Fu Wei followed Xia Dong into the hair salon. An attendant immediately came up to them. How may I help you? Xia Dong looked at Fu Wei and said, Miss, please design a hairstyle for him and dye his hair black. Fu Wei said anxiously, wait, sis. I don't want to dye it black. Xia Dong raised her hand and knocked on his head. You look like a delinquent now. You have to change your image. But, no buts. Xia Dong threatened him with her eyes. He finally shut up and pouted. The attendant smiled. Do you have a familiar hairstylist? Xia Dong said, no. Arrange for your head hairstylist. Okay, this way please. Xia Dong sat in the waiting room, flipping through the magazine in her hand. 2 hours later, Fu Wei's hairstyle was finally done. When he appeared in front of her, she almost couldn't believe her eyes. Ad Shinwu 799. Chapter 347. Fu Wei was now wearing a white shirt and black trousers. His refreshing black hair was suffused with a rich luster, and his irregularly cut bangs were slanted to one side. It was very well groomed, making his handsome face look even more delicate and handsome, and also very capable and experienced. Xia Dong smiled with satisfaction. She walked in front of him and reached out her hand to his ear. He quickly covered his ear. Sis, my dear sister, I'm only left with this personality thing. Leave it for me. Don't even think about it. Xia Dong pried his fingers away, took off the earring on his ear and threw it into the trash can. Fu Wei looked sad and stared at the trash can. All right, look at you. Xia Dong pushed his shoulder. Look at yourself in the mirror. Fu Wei turned around and looked at himself in the mirror. He was in a suit and had a handsome hairstyle. However, the expression on his face and his body movements were too ugly. He looked like a hooligan who wore the wrong clothes. Raise your head, chest, stomach, and butt. Xia Dong used a magazine to pat the corresponding parts of his body. She said in a serious voice, put away that wretched expression of yours. From today onwards, you're a white-collar worker. White-collar? This word was very distant and unfamiliar to Fu Wei. He didn't know why, but when he looked at himself in the mirror, he suddenly had a strange feeling. He subconsciously followed Xia Dong's action of patting him with the magazine and raised his head. He gradually restrained the expression on his face and imitated the white-collar workers on the street. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. The image in the mirror immediately changed. Although his face still had a childish look, he was handsome, tall, and cultured. Very good. Xia Dong didn't hide her admiration for him and patted his shoulder. That's how it should be. Ah Wei, congratulations on taking the first step. Remember, a person's image is very important because the first impression others have of you starts from your clothes and appearance. Clothes not only leave a sense of beauty, but also reflect your personal temperament, character, and inner world. Appropriate speech and generous behavior are the second step. Come, I'll take you to a place. Fu Wei had a magical feeling as if he had stepped into another world. This was the first time he felt that when he put on clothes, his words and actions would involuntarily lean towards that kind of image. Xia Dong brought him to an etiquette training center. The instructor was called Belinda. When Xia Dong was the editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine, she had done an exclusive interview with Belinda, so the two of them had a private relationship. Belinda was a tall and charming lady with a head of beautiful brown curly hair. She enthusiastically stretched out her arms and hugged Xia Dong, exclaiming happily, "Wow, Xia Dong, what brings you here?" She talked about how he was a good student since he was a child. His family was strict. In order to improve himself, he never played games like other children. When she talked about how Bailey Han was thrown on an isolated island at the age of 16 to train for his coming-of-age ceremony, the car arrived at a Western restaurant. She stopped the car and said, "We're here. Get out of the car. I'll tell you when we eat." In the restaurant, Xia Dong continued the topic from before and said, when your brother-in-law was 20 years old, he had already obtained a doctorate from Harvard Business School. After returning to China, he refused to inherit his family's company. He pulled in investors himself and founded Xinghao Group. Fu Wei listened with great interest. From time to time, he would show a surprised expression. Finally, he sighed and concluded, although brother-in-law didn't rely on his family to achieve what he has today, his family created a good environment for him. This is also inseparable from his success. In the end, it's better to be born in a rich family. After saying that, he added enviously, if only I was born in a rich family. Xia Dong had the urge to smash the bowl. She clenched her hands tightly and suppressed the impulse. She said in a deep voice, Wei, although your living environment is not as good as your brother-in-law's, your parents have never mistreated you in terms of living and education. It's you who didn't learn well. Even dropping out of school was your own idea. Why don't you know how to reflect on yourself? Fu Wei wanted to refute, but Xia Dong beat him to it. She said, the reason why your brother-in-law is successful is that he is good at learning and improving his ability. There's a saying that knowledge can change one's fate. Don't tell me that you haven't heard of it. Fu Wei's lips moved. He snorted and said angrily, Sis, don't preach to me. It's useless to say so much to me. Xia Dong gritted her teeth and struggled. Finally, she glared at him and pushed her plate in front of him. You eat it all. I've lost my appetite because of you. Okay. Fu Wei didn't feel guilty at all. He smiled and moved the steak from her plate to his. Xia Dong looked at his greasy mouth and couldn't help but shake her head. After dinner, he received a call. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He waved at Xia Dong and said, Sis, I'm leaving. I have something to do. Xia Dong grabbed his collar. Where are you going? Although he deliberately lowered his voice when he answered the call, she still heard him say, Wait for me. I'll be right there. Fu Wei's face was bitter. Sis, my friend asked me out to play. Let go of me. No. From today onwards, you have to cut ties with those bad friends of yours. If you hang around with them, you'll never be able to walk the right path. Xia Dong snatched the phone from his hand without giving him a chance to explain. He searched through the call log for the number he had just received and dialed it. Sis, give me back my phone. Fu Wei rushed over to snatch the phone. Xia Dong quickly dodged and nimbly avoided him. Hey, Wei. Didn't I say we were at the rave bar? Why are you calling again? It was extremely noisy on the other end of the line. Xia Dong said coldly, Wei won't be going over. If you have any problems in the future, don't look for him. Hey, who are you? You're so arrogant. I'm his guardian. Don't harass him in the future. After Xia Dong said this, she didn't wait for the other party to reply. She hung up the phone and turned it off. She took out the SIM card from the phone and casually put it in her handbag. Her actions were done smoothly. Fu Wei was stunned for a second before he reacted. He shouted angrily, Xia Dong, who allowed you to do this? Hurry up and give me back my phone and SIM card. Xia Dong suddenly turned her head and stared at him with a sharp gaze. She exuded a cold aura. Under her fierce gaze, Fu Wei actually felt uneasy. He pursed his lips and deliberately raised his chin. He said in a rough voice, What are you looking at? Hurry up and give me back my things. Xia Dong's fingers were trembling. She really wanted to teach this useless bastard of a lesson. However, looking at his childish face, she held back. She approached him step by step. A strong pressure pressed down on him. His legs retreated without leaving a trace. She suddenly grabbed his arm and dragged him out of the Western restaurant under everyone's surprised and curious gazes. She placed him harshly into the BMW. Attention, Shinwoo 799. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.